Hey, Lee.
Hello.
I was just texting you. I wasn't.
Oh. What's this? Is this the new hairstyle we got going on there?
Yeah, I was explaining in an earlier podcast that last week, well, actually, I think it might have been last week or a couple of weeks ago, my hairdresser messed up my hair. And then I realized, he cut like a piece of the long hair. And then I realized, I didn't intend to have a ponytail in the first place. And it was quite odd. I was a 40, well, no, I'm not 40, but I was looking like a 40-year-old with a ponytail. So I decided to cut it. And to be honest, it's quite freeing.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel like Sampson?
So who's Sampson? Well, I know who Sampson is, but what does that have to do with his hair?
Remember Sampson? He was the one that had Delilah cut his hair off and he lost all his strength, remember?
Oh, I don't know his story. I know there's a Sampson of strength, though.
Yeah, the Sampson was that meant to be back in the day of biblical times, and he had all the strength, but the strength come from his hair and that, and she cut his hair off and that. Then he was chained to those like pillars, and he pushed them down and pushed the temple down and stuff. Yeah, but
I'm the reverse of Sampson.
A woman destroyed him.
Well, yeah, but that has happened to me also. Well, not right now, but it has happened to me in the past. But no, I'm the reverse of Sampson. It's when I was strong, I lose hair, and then I think maybe most of us are the reverse of Sampson. But anyways,
most bodybuilders go bald. Some do. I still got my hair.
I wanted to ask you, while I have you here before Bostin joins us, how have you been feeling since we last spoke?
Good. Been good.
Better?
Yeah, not a problem since then.
What are your new projects that have you been doing? I've been seeing a lot of new projects on Instagram.
Getting a website put together for different types of training programs and diets. Some will be like basic ones, where you put in your body weight and your goals and it will spit out calories and stuff. But then there'll be more in-depth ones where I'm more hands-on, one-on-one type stuff and stuff like that. Stuff I should have done long ago.
Exactly. I'm sure people have been telling you that for years and years, though, right?
Yeah, they have. But then it was like, you get a few people that you've trained over the years and you do stuff, and then you get a few bad experiences where what they do is fucking complain, or what they want to do is, okay, I got the diet and I got the training, but what about drugs? What drugs are there? It's like, oh, fucking hell. It's like more to it than drugs. That's only a small part, but that's what they want to know. It's like,
Well, Lee, there's an advantage though with someone like yourself who has a big reputation. You can be selective about who you choose, and you don't have to take that approach that so many coaches take, which they take like everybody, they make them pay $250. If somebody pays you $250 a month, you can't be that available to them. It's not possible. Because, for example, if you book a consultation with me for an hour, it costs more than $250. So how am I going to be like, for example, on the phone with you all month and like whenever you need help, I'll be there for you, or I'm really going to like in detail talk to you about your diet all the time if you're paying exactly $250. So, for example, you could be charging $2,000 a month and then being selective. For example,
and the thing is too, I hate babying people too. It's like when I learned all myself. So it's like, if I give you a diet and training that, I want you to go away and do the training. Like you might give them a chest workout, and halfway in a week and a half time, they're like, can I change the chest workout up? I'm like, you've only been doing it a week and a half. We're not going to change it for at least another month or two. Just stick to it. Oh, you better act like this one. Fuck off.
No, but it depends. But Lee, it really depends on the person. Like, for example, right now I have an Australian client actually who's unbelievable. Like, you tell him something,
he's probably a cunt.
Whatever you tell him, he gets it done. Unbelievable. Like, he moves mountains. I talked to him 6 days later. He's in Australia the healthcare system is so difficult. He books an appointment, it takes 3 months or whatever. I'll tell him, like, try to find another cardiologist. He will go on his own, find out that there's no way to get around the cardiologist thing. So he'll book a heart specialist, see him. By the time I spoke to him next, he's already booked this, done it, and he's the same with the gym. You tell him, he does it.
You can go to your doctor, and your doctor might say, oh, you've got a heart problem. Okay, I'll book you into this specialist. You call up the specialist. Yeah, my doctor just gave me a referral to come see you. Hold on. He's booked out for the next 2 months. I'm like, well, don't worry about it. It's just a heart condition. I could be fucking dead in 2 months' time. I do, I've got good health insurance, so I do the old basic thing. I just go up to the hospital, the emergency room, and go, I got tightness of the chest. I'm finding it hard to really breathe. As soon as you go into the emergency room and say you got a heart problem, straight in, They run all the tests. They do all the stuff for you. Hey, it's like
That's literally, by the way, how people I've read have to act in jail and prison to get health care.
Oh.
They always say, I am having a heart condition. So you guys in Australia have to act that way in the normal conditions of...
if I go to the emergency room for anything now, I just say, oh, yeah, years ago I had cardiomyopathy. They look it up. I sit down, sir, and, you know, people up there, my friend works security. People have been waiting hours and hours. I walk in, sit down, sir, in a couple of minutes. Excuse me, in you go. And they're like, what the fuck? And then there's a couple of people that know me. Oh, fucking Lee Priest goes in straight away, doesn't he? they don't know I'm playing the heart game at the front counter.
No, these are good tricks, actually. To be honest with you, like the best thing I've learned with healthcare is learning how to speak their language. So when I go to a doctor, I have to know what reasons does he need to be able to justify doing a scan on me. So I have to, before I ask him, I want a kidney scan, I have to tell him, I've had high blood pressure for 10 years. My aunt died of kidney failure. And then I say, by the way, I've been having this shooting pain on my side. I'm curious, can I do a kidney scan? Now, if he doesn't do it, it's malpractice because I just told him all the conditions that I could be in kidney failure. I could sue him after. So now he does the scan. You know what I mean? Whereas before I used to go for years, I would want a scan, I would ask, and they would never do it.
Oh, yeah. I hate it. Like here in Australia, like I said, you got to see the doctor. They got to give you a referral to go to the specialist. You go to the specialist, you get your results. Then you got to go back and see the doctor. Then, you got to go back to the specialist. So you go up, they call the specialist. Yeah, the doctor told me to come back. Oh, you got to get another referral. I'm like, oh, fucking hell, I've already been once. Why I got to come back again? I think it's just every time you get one, they get paid. So it's like, it's just a big money making.
But what I'm trying to say though is this: if you're just very selective and slow about accumulating clients, like right now I have 6. So before I had 10, couple of graduated, and I chose not. Now I have a 15-person wait list. So right now at the moment, so I have 6 and I'm not adding. I'm being very careful. Like I'm interviewing them because you want to work with somebody that you want to be friends with. So imagine you're working with somebody that you genuinely like. Now, me and you are both lonely people. We don't admit it, but both of us probably insulate. We have friends, but probably I know you. I can tell.
Yeah. All my friends hate me.
That's not true.
They hate me in the way that I never do anything. Lee, let's go out. No, I want to stay home. Lee, let's go out and eat. I'm like, no, I'd rather stay home. So they're like, we're not going to fucking ask you to go anywhere. All you want to do is stay home. I'm like,
exactly. So look at this brilliant idea. So you force yourself sort of to work with people that you like, that sort of become your friends, because you're Lee Priest. So you have a lot of options. If I have these options, you have way more options than me. So you could choose people that you genuinely like, and then it's not a babying thing and not only do you like, but they're reasonable people. You know what I mean? There's some guys, sometimes people just want to ask, unnecessary questions. Sometimes people are, genuine. They really respect your advice and they want your opinion on like all kinds of matters in their life, like their dating life or something like that. And sometimes when you really like the people, like I like these 6 guys, I love talking to them about this stuff. So actually, I really, really enjoy it, and it becomes a very nurturing kind of thing. And so, I think you'll have a good time. It just depends on who you date,
exactly.
It's almost like dating. Yeah, it all depends on who you accept at the end of the day. You can't do it where you just take people.
I think I'll probably find they get more from, say, like maybe a businessman who just wants to get in good shape and be healthy rather than I'm sure you get some, but I just find some of them these days, the gung-ho bodybuilders, just, I want to get big, I want to do this. And what about, some guy was writing me the other day on Instagram even, he's like, I'm 5 weeks out, Lee, I don't know what to do, carb loading, too many carbs. I said, mate, and the way he was going through, I said, mate, you're overthinking. He goes, yeah, I am, but these guys at the gym that don't know anything tell me what they do. I said, well, if they don't know anything, why the fuck are you listening to them? I'm like,
yeah, I'm not even talking about bodybuilders. Actually, I think mainly the people I would be thinking about are probably like people that are very good at what they do, whether businessmen or something else, that don't have time to learn how to lift, that know, hey, this guy is a top athlete, top bodybuilder. I can trust him with all the bodybuilding aspects. And sometimes there'll be younger people that are very wealthy or something like that get into lifting. But I'm not sure that competitive, what I hear is competitive bodybuilders are the hardest to coach and the most.
Well, they know it. They know everything. They go online and then they'll ask me, but then they'll go to the gym. Lee told me to do this. What do you think about it? It's like, then why ask me if you're going to go ask everybody else? It's like,
well, with them, it's just really they all want to up the dosages also. So it's really like, and you're competing with people like, I feel like in that if you're coaching bodybuilders, then you're competing. At the end of the day, because some people will just have less ethics, or they'll think less in the future of the client, so they'll just make the client look better in the short term, and you'll be competing sort of with that. So the client will always be like, well, that coach's client looks better right now. So and they'll be jumping ship. It's really not a nice scene.
Or you get the ones who are just not patient enough to do the groundwork first. It's like, yeah, but what about the drugs? It's like, well, how about we train for 12 months before you even think about doing drugs? But I want to. It's like, no, I'm not going to put you on drugs straight away, you dickhead.
Which is very true. It doesn't work. So many people have tried that, by the way, Lee, to use drugs before, just as they start working out. And just for the audience to know, it's not just Lee saying this because he's a pro and gifted and all that. Even normal people, if they start on drugs, you don't respond well to the drugs, and your body develops in a weird way where you have an unusually large like shoulders and chest, but your arms are never going to get big, because if you notice, most natural people have already big arms.
Yeah, well, like I said, I started competing at 13, but then I started at 19, and people go, Lee, but you started young. I said, but at 19, I had won everything, my national titles, everything, state titles without drugs. Now I'm 19, I've come to America to turn pro. So, of course, I'm going to have to use drugs now to keep up with the other genetically gifted pro bodybuilders. So, but I've done that 6 years, busting my ass twice a day and that sort of thing. And you know, it's like I said, you see my pictures when I'm 13, 14, 15, you could see that that's what I tell people. I said, if you don't do the groundwork, I said, how do you know how far you could have gone naturally? At least try and go as far as you can naturally before you start throwing all the drugs in on top of it, especially if you're young, because you got these young kids now, 16, 17, when their testosterone levels should be high, injecting test and shit. I'm like, what are you doing that for? It's just...
So, Lee, you're actually a mutant, by the way, I discovered recently. No, I'll tell you why, for real. So, listen, hey, Boston. So, I've been reading about how apparently in a bunch of rodents, they've shown that if a mother has... sorry, let me remove this other Boston. If a mother has higher amounts of androgens before getting pregnant or during pregnancy, she can influence the epigenetics of the child, make the child specifically of rodents more hostile for their whole lives. So I'm not saying you're hostile, but that's specific. But
my mother, I forget what it is my mother has.
She competed, right?
Yeah, so but she always had a high level of male testosterone. Her test level was really high. And she was given female hormones to lower her male test levels and that. And when she started training to compete, she just didn't take the estrogen and that. And she did, like I said, in 8 months, she won her first contest. So
incredible, because there are a lot of polymorphisms that can make women like that. They have that more androgenic element, because you had an incredible physique as a youth. That's one of the questions actually the audience will have for Boston. I think Boston can't hear us yet. But anyway, what else is new with you guys in Australia? By the way, I would like to announce, since people are listening to this, I just wanted to say a shout out to the Australian listeners, because I was looking, actually my wife was looking at our YouTube stats the other day, and the second largest listener group is actually Australia, which I was so surprised by, and I'm very flattered. And I've only been to Australia once when I was a child, but I can't ever forget Sydney. I really loved it. I went in the winter time.
It's nice.
And I was a young, I was half American, but I grew up in Dubai, so it was sort of Arab mentality. And I had this muffin. For the first time in my life, I had a muffin. It was a blueberry muffin in the winter, 1996 or so. And anyway, I really love Australia, every Australian.
Did you have Vegemite? That's the real question.
No, but I've heard of it from Australians since then. That's true. I've heard of it. It sounds horrible, though, to be honest with you.
You don't have to send me your address. I'll send you some. It's like it's an acquired taste. You just don't put too much on. If you put it on toast with butter, it's not too bad. It's really high in vitamin Bs and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, sometimes people put too much on. If you put too much on, it's like salt and everything else. But yeah, it's different.
By the way, Boston has never actually had any technical difficulties before. This is the first time. It's because we have too much personality in one. This is the colliding giants. He can't connect, and I think he also can't hear us. Maybe I should text him. I'm going to text him. We got
a few places in Australia in lockdown again. COVID's popped up at some places.
Despite the extreme lockdowns that you guys had.
Well, Brisbane up in Queensland, they put that city on a 3-day lockdown because 8 people turned up positive, because one of the nurses that worked in the COVID ward hadn't been vaccinated and he'd been out partying and around the clubs spreading the love.
Wow. So, it's Boston. Hey, you hear us?
Hello.
Oh, you're there. Oh, great. Sorry, Lee. I was excited that Boston finally.
Have I been on this whole time?
No, you just became audible. Welcome.
Thanks.
It's like they're ignoring me.
Yeah.
No, I had big time trouble getting on, and I didn't know if I was on here looking like an idiot.
It's probably Joe Biden's in charge of the internet over there.
Oh no, you have been on here. We just couldn't hear you at all.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So
No, just a short time. You were just standing there. So, anyway, guys, great to see you again. I was just chatting with Lee a little bit. Boston, I wanted to ask you one quick thing before we get started, which is, you know what happened to me recently? So, I bought some pastrami. Well, first of all, by the way, I got jealous of your haircut, so I cut my hair.
yeah, it looks like you cut it.
We don't have great hair.
Leo's turned into a Backstreet Boy by the look of it.
That was a good one.
Look at him. Look at that hairdo.
I could find, actually what your hair, this isn't like an insult, but you know what your haircut looks like? It's a comic book guy from X-Men. There was, if any of the listeners know what I'm talking about, there was one X-Men character, he was a villain, who had a small blonde, part just like Lee. He was huge, massive guy. Maybe some nerd would know other than me. I don't remember.
Could have been worse. Most bodybuilders look like Professor X.
That's true. Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, so I wanted to ask you, Boston, I ate some pastrami recently, and this pastrami has much more sodium than I realized, and I'm not adapted to the sodium, of course, and now I have a little bit of testosterone in me, and I'm not adapted to the mineral corticoid, whatever. So basically, I became really bloated for like 3 days. When I was bloated, I, of course, paranoia, you know me, so I started thinking kidney failure. So I started looking.
Oh, no.
I went through this whole thing where I was like, no, I've been going through it today even with my wife. Like, so let me tell you the story. So first of all, I noticed like I'm really bloated. I said my body shouldn't be staying this bloated. It should have adapted quicker. Okay, there must be some kidney problems. So I go check my old kidney tests from when I was on hormones before. I'm like, what was the worst creatinine? I'm looking, it's 1.2, 1.2. The EGFR is really bad because obviously I was young, but it's like, it's not that, it's 1.2. So I was like, Then I go through my kidney ultrasound. I was going to post it on Instagram. I go through the kidney ultrasound. I look at each thing. I like Google it, try to study it. I'm like, okay, it seems like there's no glomerulosclerosis. But then then I noticed, like, I'm like, do I have a bit of dandruff? You know, when you get kidney stuff, because you start to get flaking also. Really? So then I look at my legs, and this is the part I wanted to ask you about. I look at my ankles, and I'm like, wait a minute. The left ankle is thicker than the right ankle, for sure.
That's what Bo said happened to him, remember?
Yeah, Bo said, exactly. So I said, okay, that's a dead giveaway. That's it. So I called my wife. I'm like, look, left one is bigger. I knew it the whole time I had kidney damage. I had no idea. I recovered because I went off, I was low body weight and went off hormones. I go back on, literally, by the way, I'm not on not more than 300. There's no way. This is like crappy stuff. I tried to take 400 a week. So it's less than 400. So I don't know what it is. But the point is, it's very low. And I'm like, I'm telling my wife, like, I took this tiny amount and I think it crashed my kidney and now I'm in kidney failure. So my wife is like, no, you're not. This is paranoia, whatever. So she convinced me not to go to the hospital. But what I wanted to ask you is this, Boston. How in the world is your left ankle not more swollen than your right? Because mine is right now as I talk to you.
You don't have kidney issues, man.
No, I don't. Maybe I don't. No, I don't. But what I'm trying to say is I realize this. Basically, whenever anyone's bloated, the left side will be more bloated. The left leg will be more bloated than the right leg. So what I was asking is, you have absolutely no bloat still?
No. My dad asked to see me and my dad. My dad came down for my birthday, and I cheated my ass off. We went to hibachi, high sodium, everything. And he was like, son, let me see your ankles. So I showed him, and I still have veins in my calves. There's no swelling at all.
Oh, but bro, you should be very, very careful about the high sodium because it can cause the acute.
No, I know. My doctor gets on me about the high sodium.
What doctor?
I'm still with that guy. I'm starting to like
That's not a doctor.
Leo's just panicking. Look, Leo, I'll tell you a secret. When you get your hair cut, your face looks fatter. That's all it is, okay? That's it. Once it goes in here, this comes out.
This was before that. Actually got better when I cut it, but anyway.
The gear does make you more sodium sensitive. I don't know if Lee got that too, but anytime you add in some anabolics, you're more sensitive to sodium.
Yeah, because
the only thing that made me really bloat was like an Apollon 50, like Anadrol.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even Dianabol wasn't too bad. Dianabol would make me a little bit puffy, but normally, like I even used to, when I used Cypionate a bit and stuff, or Sus 250, I died on that up until the contest. I was only taking like the 400 milligrams on a Sus 250. If it was true Sus 250, it would have been 500 a week. But even dieting on that, I didn't hold too much fluid. But anything like orals, Dianabol, or an Apollon, I'd get.
Hey, Lee, one of the questions that I didn't record, and I just wanted to ask before I forget, is back I mean, you weren't in the earliest times, but in the 90s, was there some certain non-testosterone base that was preferred, like Deca or Primo or EQ? I know you didn't talk about it much with people, so I didn't record the question, because I know that wasn't your thing, but I just wanted to ask.
Anything if it wasn't like test. The only thing I used to like even back in the day was like even just like Deca and Dianabol together or basics like that. But no, there's nothing really more over one than the other. But no, it's just all the basics, pretty much like that. You know, the Deca, Dianabol test. If you could get the was it the Parabol that used to come in those snap off?
The 75 milligram amps.
Yeah.
I've used
I used to
Indian
hate them because I don't know how many times I would snap them, but I'd smash them. And all the broken glass would go inside, and I'm thinking, I don't want to use it.
I would still try to get it out.
I'd just throw it away. I'm thinking, my luck, the glass will a little bit will go up the syringe and go into my somewhere.
I hate that when you go to pop it and the whole thing just crushes.
Yeah, just shatters.
No. Yeah,
then you get the one. Then you get the one where you think you're a strong bodybuilder. I think the Sustanon 250 used to come in the clear one, and you'd be like this forever. You can't even snap the top off a fucking vial.
Yeah.
That's the cerebrolysin that I'm dealing with these days. That nerve thing I told you about, that thing comes in like 5 milliliter ampules, 10 milliliter ampules. They seem to be made of steel. And what I do is now, I heard somebody mention this. I don't know if it was you, Boston, or somebody, but I take a pen cap and put it on the top. And then I take the pen cap and put it on the side of like a desk or something, and that pops it. But then
you got that from Ian Villar on Fuad's podcast.
Yes. He's brilliant. He's really good. Yeah, I really like Ian.
I remember the first time when I did the gear at 19, my friend got it from the doctors. They used to come preloaded, and it came preloaded with an 18-inch needle on, and that's what I used to get. The 18-inch, he'd shove it in my glute. I was like, what the fuck's that? It's like a core sample, like a roofing nail. I'd be like, hey, can't you get something smaller? He goes, it's preloaded, it comes on there. I said, fucking 18 gauge. I finally got to the point where I hated needles. If I ran out of needles and I had like an insulin syringe before, I'd fill up the insulin syringe with oil, and I'd sit there for an hour just fucking pushing it in through a 25 gauge. The thing's fucking bending. I said, I don't give a shit. I'll take as long as I want. But I use a 25 gauge for oils. It'd take forever, but I didn't care.
That's what we do. That's what we do nowadays. Everybody does that. They call it backloading. Everybody switched to that. Yeah, because it's less damaging to the muscle.
I just hate it.
Are those the Sustanon amps you're talking about? I mean, the Sustanon preloaded that you were talking about? Because I heard the one from Mexico. There were Sustanon preloaded syringes that came from Mexico. These ones. When I was still in Australia, you could actually. That's when our doctors could still prescribe it. That was 19, so that would have been back in like 92, 93. The doctor could still prescribe it. Yeah, it'd come in a box, and there'd be like 3 preloaded ones in the box. They would prescribe it to a 19-year-old?
No, my friend would get it, so he'd give it to me. Yeah, but then there was that one they had here. They give out a lot to some people. It was that was it Reandron or something? It was like it's meant to be slow release testosterone. Sometimes now you go to a doctor and you go to the. No, it's
Undecanate. It's like a month long.
Testosterone and Undecanate. He's talking about.
Yeah, it's like 1,000 milligrams. It's meant to be, and it's meant to you get one shot every 8 weeks. You go to the doctor and get one shot every 8 or 10 weeks or something.
It gives you a huge mood cyclicality through the month. It's a horrible decision. Yeah, very bad choice. So I wanted to ask you guys. So number one thing I wanted to ask Boston, and I don't know, Lee, if you know about this guy as much, but there's a guy called Jordan Peters who recently made a post. You heard about it, Boston, right?
No, I know who Jordan Peters is, though.
Oh, you didn't hear about it?
The bodybuilder Jordan Peters, or the one that talks about men's rights and all the
no,
the
bodybuilder, because the men's rights one is Jordan Peterson. But I often make that mistake also. I often call Jordan Peters Jordan Peterson, actually. But the bodybuilder one from the UK. So apparently he made a post in his private forum that he, after the unfortunate passing, God rest his soul, of the gentleman. I don't know I didn't know him personally, but the guy who just passed away,
Andy Hammond.
Yeah, exactly. Andy, God rest his soul. Which, by the way, that's an interesting passing, right? They already confirmed that it had something to do with a blood clot, supposedly a blood clot in the lung, right?
Yeah, and Dave was saying that. Dave said he spoke to the family. Yeah, he had didn't he have like an elbow operation, some infection on his elbow, and had it fixed up, and then there was something that broke off, or some part of the infection went from there to his lung, and killed him like 2 or 3 days later. Yeah, he was at home.
Oh, wow. But it was a pulmonary embolism, so it must have been some kind of blood clot. It's interesting, though. Haven't you guys noticed so many people are dying of blood clots in the last year and a half or so? It must have something to do with COVID to some degree, right? I assume it could just be resistance to COVID. I don't know.
I know a guy that's my age that died a couple of years ago. He was going to the gym. He never wanted to use much gear. He was a low-dose gear guy, and he just had a kid, and he had a blood clot in his leg, and he died immediately.
Wow, that's really sad. So maybe I should mention for the audience to know, just for educational sake, like there has been a theory in medicine for the last 25 years or so among doctors that maybe using low dose baby aspirin for the rest of your life when you're 50 or so could make you live longer, because what the aspirin does is thin your blood, and if your blood's thin, your heart has an easier time pumping it, and your blood vessels get less stressed over time and incur less damage and so on. So one of the advantages of taking high dose EPA fish oil is it tremendously thins your blood, almost more than a baby aspirin if you take 6 grams or something like that.
I heard a few doctors say that here. It's like they were saying I think 80 milligrams, 70 to 80 milligram aspirin, one a day, and just take it forever, they reckon. But then you get these other doctors, that will not work, that won't work. It's like, oh well.
So it's debated, but one thing that's not debated is the Reduced study, about 6 years ago, there was a government-funded study in the U.S. to approve fish oil as a pharmaceutical drug for the treatment of cardiovascular disease. So they did the study. They put a bunch of people that already had heart attacks, 4,000 people, I think, if I remember correctly, who already had heart attacks, who already were on statins. They gave one group of them 4,000 milligrams of EPA only, and the other group nothing. The group with 4,000 milligrams had 25% less likelihood of cardiovascular events in 4 years. So it was a dramatic improvement. Now, I don't know if it's completely from the blood thinning element, but part of it could be. So anyway, that's something to think of. But
so do you need about 4,000 a day? Because I don't know how strong mine are. I know I got the big tub of them, and it says triple strength, but I don't know what triple strength is compared to whatever. But
usually the best strength one will be 1 gram capsules or 1 gram soft gels. In the US, that's, by the way, for the audience, that's Walmart. Spring Valley is the cheapest one. You just go to Walmart. Don't order from Amazon. It's a bit $2 more expensive on Amazon. So if you go to Walmart in the US, it'll cost you $15 a month to get 4,000 milligrams a day of fish oil from the 1 gram, and that's 4 pills a day. Which for me, when I'm not on hormones, my blood is thick naturally. So normally, if I cut myself, I won't bleed much. When I'm on 4 grams, my bleeding time dramatically increases. I can see it. My blood's way thinner, which I'm sure is very helpful.
I've never had that where I know my friend, he said he's got to go get it done, I think next week, where is it some people take too much gear, or they just got to have something in their blood where they got to go and get it drained or something because of the iron or something, or some build up in his blood. He says he's got to go get some taken out. Or
well, let's talk about that. So, for example,
about Jordan Peters.
Well, we'll get to that. Well, I'll just one thing before I say that. I noticed one thing, guys. I get some consultations from people on hormones, and I didn't pay attention. I didn't know that much about health myself when I was on hormones. But now I noticed that, for example, at the Tour de France, the limit, because they know that people are taking erythropoietin, but it's difficult to prove. So in Lance Armstrong's day, the way that they had it was that the limit of your hematocrit that you can have is 50. So Lance and all his buddies would take erythropoietin all year as much as they could, and then before the competitions, they would keep it below 50. They would try to get 49. A lot of people on hormones are already at 54, 49. So if you think about it, like Lance has a huge heart. So, and you know, we know that cyclists are very unhealthy. And the main reason we think is because of the thick blood, right? Because of that drug use. So bodybuilders are also incurring that kind of stuff. But about Jordan Peters, so basically Jordan said that because of Andy's unfortunate passing, he's been rethinking I don't want to summarize incorrectly. It was a long message, but he's been rethinking his journey, and he doesn't want to keep pushing specifically drug use. So I don't know if he mentioned so much downsizing, but he mentioned basically going on TRT or very light drug use and dropping down and not shooting for the pro card. Basically, he gave up his pro card dreams. So I thought, Bostin, you would find this interesting because for you always had that sort of leftover, a similar, not dream, you wanted to reject it, okay, which is a little bit different, but you had a similar thing, and then you are facing like, you have a health condition at the moment. So you have a similar, so it's an interesting thing to talk about.
That guy, you know who we're talking about, Lee?
Andy or Jordan?
Jordan Peters.
Yeah, I met him a couple of times when I went to England. I did a few seminars around England, and I met him, and pretty fit guy and pretty solid. Even though he was big, he was sort of in lean shape. He seemed to be like a English version of Dave Palumbo a bit, but bigger, just sort of that big guy, but in shape. But he seemed to know his stuff. But then it's like, you can know all the stuff in the world, but your body can only take so much in the end. So,
well, see, in the UK, it's harder to get a pro card. Like if he was in the US, he would already win pro with that physique. I'm not saying he has a pretty physique, but he has a freaky physique.
Yeah.
But for him, he's short. He's shorter in stature, and like you said, he's like 300 pounds at like 5'4" or something, which is pretty unhealthy. I know he talked about. I think he uses a CPAP machine at night and all this stuff. He has trouble breathing. He's tried to go pro multiple times in the UK, and he was always like a couple placings off. I know his last show he ended up backing out a few weeks out because he knew he wasn't going to be his best. But I don't know. I kind of feel bad for the UK guys, man, because it's actually really hard to go pro out there. And then you got these guys in the US that they look like shit, and they're going in the gym like, oh, I'm a pro, and I'm like, what the fuck is this?
As I know, a pro. You're like a pro in what? Fucking lawn bowls or what?
Horrible.
That's the thing, is when I go to the UK and I'd go a bit around Europe, you see some guys over there who, like you said, if they were in America, they could probably get a pro card like that. That's why even some of the guys in NABBA I'd see when I was over there, I'm like, if you're in the IFBB, you'd be doing well. I remember that guy that got second to me at the Universe, that Korean guy, he came over and won a few of the 212s after the Universe and stuff. But yeah, some of these guys over there are monsters, and you never hear about them because I don't know. I know my friend Dean competed with the UK BFF, and he was denied a pro card like almost 4 times. He'd won the national thing and wouldn't get one. So it's just, I think it's very political in the UK, their version of the IFBB as well, more so than America.
Yeah, they get like 1 or 2 pro cards out a year.
Yeah, you don't get many.
Yeah.
What about Australia? Is it as difficult to get a pro card?
It is, but not.
In the IFBB, because they got the new divisions now, the IFBB in Australia split in those 2 fractions. But when I was young, it was because they said I was too young to get one, even though I won the Mr. Australia at 17, 18 and 19. They said I was too young to get a pro card. That's why when Lou Zwick brought me over to do the amateur Niagara Falls, and Jim Mannion saw me, and he's like, oh, what are you doing? I said, I'm doing the Niagara amateur. And they're like, what have you won? I said, well, this, and this, the Mr. Australia. He's like, you won your national title 3 times. Why haven't you got a pro card? I said, well, the IFBB there said I was too young. So he contacted Wayne D'Amelia, who contacted the people back in Australia. Then they changed their mind and go, okay, we'll give him his pro card. So I did the Niagara Falls Pro Show instead.
Oh, interesting. What year was this?
That would have been 93. I did the Niagara Falls Pro Show.
Interesting.
Are you clear now to compete in the IFBB?
What's that?
Can you compete in the IFBB now, or they still have you banned?
Oh, well, I was banned with the old, because you know how that Raphael and them all separated?
Yeah.
So I was banned for life, and there'd be things where even Bob Ciccarello would say I was banned for life. And then he was on some podcast last year. Lee made that all up. He was never banned for life from this organisation. I said, well, technically no, Bob. From this new organisation, I have never been banned for life. But the old IFBB, I had letters. I finally got a letter, and promoters told me I couldn't go to their shows. Tony Doherty here in Australia, who I grew up with. I knew Tony when he was training with Sonny Schmidt. Wow. I competed in Tony's shows when I was a teenager. I knew Tony personally. As soon as I got banned from the IFBB, he wouldn't even let me go to his show or his expo until they split. And one day my phone rings. I see it's Tony. He's like, oh, I said, hi, Lee. He goes, yeah, we're split now. You're more than welcome to come to my shows. I said, well, why couldn't you talk to me? I come before. He goes, well, you know how it is. I said, no, I don't know how it is. I thought we're meant to be friends. You could at least still talk to me. That's all.
I always wondered if you knew him. I didn't know about your relationship because I saw him on Dave's show before.
Yeah. That's because I mentioned that on a podcast. I think he was on the Australian Muscle Asylum a week later. I said, oh, Lee, you said he couldn't come to your shows. And he goes, yeah, sadly, yeah, just the way it is. You know, you in this sport, you got to get somewhere. I'm thinking, I couldn't even go, being one of Australia's best. I had a friend competing in the IFBB one year. I couldn't even go watch him because they wouldn't even let me in the audience to go watch his show.
That's ridiculous.
Which is interesting. Which is interesting because you'd think that the Australian fan base would rally around you, and that the IFBB would be concerned because at the time they didn't have another Australian pro to speak of. So they just banned the only one, and he was one of the greatest bodybuilders in history. And
well, he had like Luke Wood. Luke Wood come along for a little bit.
Luke was already there. Okay.
He just pretty much. But then I said sadly he passed away, and then he had Josh come out, but then Josh had a few health problems. Yeah, but we haven't had a lot of great ones. Yeah, we had back in the day. You had John Torelli and some people like that, but there was never really. Because we don't have the population either. I think the whole population of Australia is 26 million, so there's not a big gene pool to pick from. So,
which is interesting because I noticed that when I speak to some clients in Australia, you guys have such strong control on testosterone. Like it seems like to be a weapon of mass destruction in Australia. The government is very concerned about testosterone.
You got to go to a doctor, and then that doctor will have to refer you to an endocrinologist. You got to wait months to see the endocrinologist. Because when I had that car accident, they put me on all those opioids and shit. My testosterone levels just went crashing down. Yeah. So I thought, oh, great, it's low. I'll go to the doctors, show it's low. Then I'll go see the endocrinologist, which took a couple of months. So by this time, I'd gone to see her and it was down like 2. So then after I saw her, she's like, well, wait another month or 2 and come back. But by then I put myself in detox for 2 weeks, come off all the stuff. And that's so when I went back there, she's like, oh, it's 18 now. You don't need to see me anymore. I'm like, oh. It's got to be down low for months and months and months before you can even get anything, which is weird to me because here in Australia, women can have any type of hormonal problem and go to the doctors, get female hormones, get estrogen, get this and that. But if you're a male and say, I said sometimes males, if you're feeling down, they want to give you all these other drugs like Prozac and shit like that. But sometimes all they need is testosterone. But to get that, like you said, it's like getting gold out of Fort Knox. It's like you got to jump through hoops.
Is there a lot of steroid busts over there for UGLs?
Nah, not really. It's like we don't really. It's on a big list, but normally the people that get busted with steroids are generally biker clubs or different things where we found some cocaine, we found heroin and steroids. And here too, it's like they make it worse because I knew a guy that got caught and they're like he had 10,000 such and such of this drug. And then I'm thinking, fuck, that's a lot of steroids, 10,000. But what here they do is if you had a bottle of 100 Dianabol, they'll count every pill as a 100. He had 100 counts of Dianabol.
And 1,000 steroids.
Yeah, that's how they add up rather than one bottle because they've come down on a bit
steroid.
I had a friend that got caught years and years ago, and the reason he got caught was he would sell to this one guy and that, but then this guy was an arsehole, so he stopped selling to him. So him and his missus turned my friend in. What they did, they called the health department. Normally the police wouldn't give a shit because the health department got a complaint, told the police, they came around, took all his steroids, here's your court date. He went to court and the judge just said, this is like, he goes, look, even he told me how the judge said, look, we really don't want to waste our time with this type of garbage and that. He didn't have a lot anyway. He only had maybe a couple of bottles of this and that. And the judge said, are you ever going to do it again? He's like, no, Your Honor, blah, blah, blah. He goes, okay, here's your stuff and off you go.
Yeah.
But now, like I said, if you've got nearly everyone here that gets caught on the news with steroids, the main reason they get caught is because they're selling all the other drugs on the side. So.
But the thing that surprised me about Australia being so controlling about testosterone and stuff is that Australia seems to have like a macho culture. It's not like Sweden where they're antagonistic toward masculinity in general. Like all Australians I've met are masculine. Like in England, the English women love Australian guys. Like they think of them as masculine, like northern men. You know what I mean? It's a masculine culture. They drink a lot.
Now because this guy here, Nick DiPaolo, I watch his talk show, funny comedian. Yeah. I sent him a story and he read that. He goes, I got a story from my buddy in Australia. Everyone's up in arms on, was it Monday or Tuesday here? All the parents are mad because down in Victoria, that's a state below me, the principal of the school made all the young boys, like 13, 14, they had to stand up in class at the assembly and apologise to the girl students for their gender.
What the hell?
No, but what was the official reason? Is that the official?
That was it. I'll send you the news. I'll send you the story. I put it on my Instagram, but I'll send you the actual story.
I didn't see. I haven't been looking recently. Last couple of days.
That's not just in the U.S. This whole thing going around worldwide.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
So these young boys had to stand up in front of the assembly and apologise to the female students for being male. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Okay, so it's getting to Australia too then. Okay, so I should take that back.
Yeah. Wow. Well, after this, I'll send you the link. You'll have a laugh. It was on Sky News because some parents didn't even know about it. They're outraged that 13, 14-year-old kids having to apologise for being male.
Well, Lee, I haven't told you, but I should tell you this actually. So remember, I have an idea for another show. I'll tell you about it later, actually. Anyway, back to this, what we were talking about. I wanted to mention something. You guys were talking about how it's difficult for people to get pro cards abroad. I noticed one thing in Dubai. I know people now, they show a lot of the, I don't know, actually, I haven't watched the videos of people filming in Dubai. I don't know if they've shown some of the freaks that exist there, the bodybuilding freaks, because mostly I guess it's Larry Wheels doing heavy lifts and stuff like that. But when I was in Dubai, and the way I know this is I wasn't really training in these gyms, but I used to go get my steroids from these gyms. So there was some gyms with just bodybuilders there, and they used to have like steroids. I mean, obviously the coaches or whatever would be selling steroids from their locker room. So the locker room was like a steroid, like it would be like one of that Boston's legendary room in his house, right? But that was the whole locker room. So every different coach had a different thing. And then in the main desk there, they would have GH in the fridge in the back, and you could see it. And they would have, they would make you like food and give you a GH and everything. Anyway, when I walked in there the first time, I was stunned because I noticed that like the random coaches, like some of the ones that were like basically putting weights up and stuff like that, like some like random Filipino or Indian guy, looked like freaks, mutants. They looked unbelievable. Like when you looked at them, you thought, wow, that's like Lee Priest. Like in your mind, I had never seen Lee Priest in real life, but to my mind, someone had never seen a pro bodybuilder before.
Think of a garden gnome with muscles. That's me in real life.
No, that's not true. But what I mean to say is I'm actually thinking of one guy in particular, a Filipino guy, who was just I remember walking in the gym, he was just holding something and his forearms were just unbelievable vein vascularity and stuff. But these guys usually when they would get on stage, you would find they're missing some body part. Like they're usually legs, some part of legs or their back, something's off. And I think the reason honestly is that the coaches in the Middle East don't necessarily know how to focus them maybe when they're guiding them and developing their physiques. So I think it's hard for them actually to, like they could go to Europe and try to get a card, but they would like have one of the best biceps on stage, best shoulders, best whatever, and then be missing one body part probably.
Those are the guys that you look on IG that they post in the Middle East, and you're like, these guys should be on the Mr. Olympia stage, but then they're all filtering shit, and they have a missing body part, and they're not
missing body part. But in real life, they are freaky. They are freaky. They just have missing body parts. Yeah. But
Lee, who was the most impressive guy besides yourself at the Gold's Venice during that era?
I would always say the most impressive, because he even lived with me for a while, I'd say Paul Dillett.
Yeah. I know Lee quite well now, I think. Huh?
Have you ever seen Paul Dillett's a freak. He didn't really know how to pose well, No,
but I think with Paul, because I'd seen like Dorian in person and he was a freak. And even remember like
oh yeah, tell us what
Jim Quinn and that back in the day. Jim Quinn, when he trained with Billy Smith, he was a freak and that. But yet I think with Paul, because his shoulders were so wide, and for a big guy, he still had that tiny waist and he had massive quads and hamstrings and calves and that. So Paul just looked like this cartoon type character more so than some of the other guys.
Have you seen what he looks like these days though? He's like the owner of the WBFF. He's like a pole. He's like a rail. It's great.
I saw him pop up in an interview somewhere, and I went, "Oh, he just looks like a normal." You wouldn't when you look at him before to now, it's like I think he's stopped training. Doesn't even look like he's touched a weight anymore now. Because some guys you'll see who, okay, they'll come off the gear, they'll stop doing, but they still keep a little bit of training, and okay, they'll get small, but they still look athletic. Whereas now some guys don't touch anything.
Nothing.
Yeah.
How about Jean-Pierre? Did you ever meet him?
Yeah. He was pretty big. He actually competed in a few shows with me. I think Jean-Pierre Fuchs, and because I remember I was there that time. I was meant to do a photo shoot a day or two after. Remember, he did that one with Chris London, tore both his quads.
Oh yeah, that was terrible.
And it's like, oof, just tore those photos of him under the bar and the fucking quads torn. Yeah, but yeah, he was big. But I think too. But I even said I remember competing with Marcus Rule, who was like a freak. Marcus was a freak, but yet there's just something about Paul that just had that more. They were freaky looking, but Paul was freaky and cartoonish looking for some reason.
Even his head was small. His head was even small. Right? Was it in real life, or was it just an illusion?
Paul looked a bit like, if Boston remembers, remember that cartoon that used to be in Muscle Mag that had that big muscular guy and the tiny little head?
Yeah.
That sort of reminded me of Paul. So Paul was like that. He was like the gentle giant, because when he'd live with me, he'd just be on the couch all the time. Just relaxed eating. So.
By the way, I wanted to mention another thing. You mentioned the opioids, how they made your testosterone go down. I recently read a paper I found out that apparently the same cells in the hypothalamus that the gonadotropin releasing hormone cells that signal basically the whole start of the system, they have opioid receptors. So they directly can turn off. It's a negative feedback, just like estrogen can be, to turn off your gonads. So that's how it happens so easily.
Well, they had, I forget, my mum told me she heard a doctor talking about it, because when I told her about it, and there was this, I forget his name, I have to ask my mum, but he's a doctor in Australia who was hooked on opioids for years and years and years, and he discovered all that too, and now he's pretty much on TRT for the rest of his life because his own natural system never turned back on because of the years and years of taking the Oxycontins and all the endones and all stuff like that. Yeah, just shut it all down.
Yeah, it's like putting yourself on castration in a way. It's like castration because it's giving that constant negative signal. Okay, the other thing I wanted to ask you guys about is, have you been following this, Boston especially? Have you been following actually, Lee, I don't know if you've commented on this either. Have you guys been following this Chef Rush, 2 hours sleeping, 10,000, 15,000 calorie, which I didn't know, also natural, by the way. And also the interesting scenario where Greg commented on him, and then Chef Rush called Greg a racist, and then Greg got upset about that, and then Dave supported Rush, which is, I don't know why. So it's a really interesting situation.
I saw a bit of something, because something popped up somewhere. I must have been watching another show where they commented on it. It was just showing clips of Greg. I thought Greg was going to blow a bloody blood vessel there, yelling and screaming like Gilbert Godfrey having a roid rage. It sounded quite funny. And then, there were some comments, and then someone was saying that some comments were made, but then some comments were deleted or taken down. And so it was hard to follow who said what, because they're like, if you go look at it, then they're like, well, the comments aren't there now. So it's like, oh, what the hell? It almost sounds like that chef guy reminds me of, Boston might remember when Victor Richards was around, and Victor Richards used to say, he used to say that he had 30,000 calories a day and stuff like that. I'm like, how does someone eat 30,000 calories a day? But it's like, but looking at Victor, you would think he.
Victor Richards used to train at my parents' gym, the Gold's Gym in Northridge.
Yeah.
My dad said that he's never seen somebody's hamstrings off of drop so low when he did lat pull downs. He said he was in the gym. He was a freak. That's the guy.
He was massive.
Larry Pollock called out in the gym to fight, and Victor Richards backed down.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I wonder if Larry still listens. Larry, if you are listening, send me a message. I wonder if he's still listening.
I remember the time I was in the fight. I remember the time I was in the firehouse with Gary Stridham, and Victor Richards come in and just started. Yeah, because Victor, when you speak to Ed Connors, he'll tell the stories that Victor would get kicked out of the gym a lot just for being loud and inappropriate. And then
my dad kicked him out.
Yeah, and Ed Connors said in the Golds he shot a gun and the bullet lodged in the cash register. And then Victor's like, I'm going to sue for that story. But I was in the Gary was at the back of the firehouse. I was at the table beside him, and Victor walked in, swings the door open, sees Gary, starts pointing at him. Your people killed my people, because Gary's from South Africa. So now Victor's accusing Gary's people of back in the day killing his people, and Gary's like, "What are you on about, man? I never killed anyone." This and stuff. So Victor had his moments, that's for sure.
Wait,
but he was massive though. Always wearing hot skins clothing, but he was massive.
was Victor from South Africa?
Jamaica, I think.
Yeah, Jamaica. Yeah, but
No, Jamaica.
but Gary got the blame anyway because South Africa and the apartheid back then and stuff like that. So Victor was black, so Gary was to blame being from South Africa.
Although I will mention,
Do you follow him on Facebook, Lee?
Gary?
No, Victor.
No.
He posts some crazy shit like.
So he's still a bit crazy.
Gary's trying to post some shit, but I always agree with all this stuff. I always agree with what Gary has to say. But Victor Richards, dude, he's in La La Land. He posts some crazy shit.
Oh God! When I see things like that, I'm thinking, Jesus, there's my future. I'm going to be on Facebook posting even crazier shit when I'm 60 or 70.
That's what I was about to say.
In 20 years' time, people are going, "Have you seen that fucking Lee Priest on Facebook? The shit he's posting? Fucking guy's lost it." He lost it. He lost it years ago. Didn't you see him back in the day?
Yeah, even my friend Jerry Brainham, I joke around. Nice. Yeah, I joke around with him about it also, but he on Facebook is a warlord. On Facebook, Jerry's the nicest guy on earth, but on Facebook, he's a political warlord. You can't, you have to be very careful. And if you disagree with him, he'll block you. He tells me sometimes, I just block people. If they say anything that I disagree with, I block them. He said, I'm losing friends left and right, old friends and stuff like that. So you have to be careful, I think, when you get older on Facebook. Yeah, but anyway, so okay, moving past. So anyway, the point is, I just wanted to say it was pretty funny that this guy says he sleeps 2 hours a day, and he said that the guy was racist for criticizing him and so on. Anyways,
then the push-up thing, didn't he say that was? Because then I remember
that was shocking. The veteran thing, huh?
Yeah, the veterans. Yeah. That's why the number of veterans or something, wasn't it? But then even Greg's like, you've been doing push-ups all day. But I don't know, did he say he'd done them all in a row, or does he just do them over the period of a day? He does.
No, in a row. No, listen, Lee, this is the funny thing. I haven't been watching any fitness videos for weeks. So it happens to be that the day Muscular Development or whatever puts out that video, I saw it. It came on my feed. I guess YouTube must have upregulated it. I opened it and watched the actual video, the original one. So when the commentary came out, it was originally from Derek, my friend from More Plates, More Dates. I watched his, and then I was like, "Oh, this is a good point. This is funny. The guy doesn't sleep."
That's the one I saw. I saw Derek's. That's what came up.
Derek was like, "Wait a minute, dude. You don't sleep? How do you not sleep?" And that was like, "Good point. I never realized that." And then when I first heard it originally, he said it very clearly. He says, "I wake up, and he doesn't make the coffee. He goes and does the push-ups, and then he pours himself a cup of coffee like an hour and a half later. Like he does push-ups like it's cardio, like it's endurance cardio."
But Boston's probably seen too, whenever you see push-up contests, I used to see a few in America, you get some of those military guys where to me a push-up is, you go all the way down, all the way up. I've seen some of those military guys where they're just going,
yeah.
I mean, it's like these little, it's like a porn star on his final little, before he blows his load, he's really going like a woodpecker. It's like.
That's what happened when they were doing that push-up challenge just like a few months ago. People were doing that. How many push-ups you could do in a minute, and they were all doing like quarter reps.
Yeah, it's like a full push-up is all the way up, all the way down. Yeah, not like a bloody woody woodpecker just fucking banging the earth.
Okay, so Lee, what we do on this show, me and Boston, is we meet every week. Usually, sometimes we have a guest, sometimes we don't. Usually, we take questions from the audience. Today, I have some great questions. Most of them for all three of us. Some of them are from more specific for us. So the first one is from Luke Thompson. Luke had 3 good questions. Let's start with Lee. He says, Lee, do you agree that one of your most iconic photos was the one of you resting on the angled tricep push-down bar, which, by the way, this is my favorite photo and was very influential in my childhood. And he said, is there a story behind that photograph? Also, who took it?
Yeah. Artie Zeller. Artie Zeller would always be at World Gym because he used to take a lot of Arnold's photos. He had this little box camera he just used to hang around his neck, and I'd have breakfast with Artie a fair bit. Yeah, and I was just out there training one day. He goes, take your shirt off and we'll do some training shots. So I did some. And then just in between sets, I just rested my arms up on the bar and he took a photo. And that actually ended up being on the cover of Muscle and Fitness. And then once it got the cover, he's like, I'd like to try and do that again. And when we tried to stage it, some of the best shots are the ones that are just taken up when you're training or you're just relaxing. Some of the best shots of Arnold could just be where he's just leaning on a bench and Artie would get that picture. Yeah, so that was the story behind it. I was just resting and just had my arms up on the bar resting, and he snapped the picture and sent it to Muscle and Fitness, and they used it for the cover. And then we tried to do it again, but it just looked too staged. And then even when he tried to stage it, he goes, okay, we won't stage it, just lean on it again. But of course, I knew I was having to do it. I just couldn't relax doing it the same, because it's almost like even though I'm relaxing, I'm trying to tense up a bit. So because it was just caught in the moment, it's one of those things you can't sort of replicate if you're sort of thinking about it.
In those days, did they used to take one photograph, or did the photographer used to take like many in a row?
You take a few, because back then it wasn't digital. It's just like the film, just click it and then stuff like that. I think you'd have to go. I think Artie developed a lot of his himself. I remember the days when I used to have those cameras like this. You go on holidays.
Yeah.
Like, man, we got so many great photos at a family holiday.
20 photos.
Yeah, but 20 photos, 15 of them, you got your finger half across the lens.
Or it's blurry. It's just blurry.
Yeah.
That's the only one there. Yeah. That was,
And then back in the day, people wouldn't know now because they got all these filterings and stuff. But back in the younger days, when you wanted to take sexual pictures, it was the old Polaroid camera. Oh, look at that one.
Yeah, I was too young to try that stuff. Actually, you probably had to wait. I saw the Seinfeld episode where they had to wait.
The Polaroids.
Yeah, the danger of them having to, the person in there sees whatever you're doing each time.
Well, you never take them to, because a Polaroid would just develop at home. As soon as you take the photo, it would come out.
Oh, Polaroid, exactly.
But you never.
So we had Polaroid.
You wouldn't want to take those photos to the developing place. They'd be like, what?
Exactly. No, I guess.
Hello, police. When the guy comes to pick up these photos, can you come arrest him?
Did you have Polaroids, Boston? That's the camera that immediately prints.
Yeah, I have a Polaroid camera. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot what Polaroids were. Okay.
I think some places are bringing them back out now. I think I saw them in some stores. It's like a gimmick thing now that people can use Polaroids again.
Go buy them.
Exactly. Boston, Luke asks, have you heard of using injectable L-carnitine to help one tolerate higher doses of testosterone? Vigorous Steve mentioned this recently.
A lot of coaches do that, man. They're like, "Oh, I don't use L-carnitine for fat loss. I use it to regulate the androgen receptors and all this." I don't believe in all that, man. Like, I really don't believe it. I don't think L-carnitine is going to do much for somebody who's on T3, Clen, ephedra. I don't think
as a fat loss thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it does nothing. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's minor, very minor, right? Exactly.
Yeah, I get it sent to me free. And I'll use it every once in a while, just to shoot shit, since I'm in kidney failure, and I know it's safe, but I don't feel anything.
Who told you?
I remember when I was sponsored by Twin Lab, I used to use their liquid L-carnitine. It would come in that huge bottle. And it was so shit. Yeah, it's like sweet or something. It's just like, it's just like this weird.
So terrible. I remember that. Stuff.
Yeah.
but Lee, when Twin Lab used to carry GHB, did you ever try it?
No, I never tried that. Only because when I used to go to Max Muscle, the guys I knew that tried it, they'd try it and they'd say, "You want some, Lee?" But when they'll take it, all I'd see would be this. I'm thinking,
it's horrible.
I'm thinking anything that tastes that shitty, I'm not going to take it. I remember Titus used to like it. I think that Max Muscle used to sell one. It looked like this bright blue Powerade in a bottle. And yeah, he'd take that one. But yeah, I'm not sure I told you the story about the time I was in the store with my friend Scott at Max Muscle, and this girl come in and she was talking about she wanted to try it. And he's like, "Well, it's very strong." And she goes, "Give me some." So he poured it in the cap and she had it. She's like, "I don't feel anything." She ended up taking 3 capfuls of this. I think it had a different name then. It was called something else. It was like a green and a blue one. So she goes, "Oh, I'm starting to feel it now." So she sits in the chair beside me. And I'm talking to Scott, and next thing she just starts chirping like a bird. I hear this chirp, 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 chirp. I'm like, what the fuck? And I look over, and she's off her fucking head, just chirping like a bird. And all of a sudden, the head just goes forward. I'm like, oh shit, is she dead? And then she pops up, and then these tourists come in. They're like, "Are you Lee Priest?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she slumps over now, and I'm like, "Yeah." And I've grabbed her now, and I'm holding her like Weekend at Bernie's, and I'm shaking their hand, and I'm like, "What's that noise?" And I look around. She's pissing herself in the chair. It's going under the carpet. And I'm like, holy fuck now. And I'm trying to talk to these and pay no attention to this. And Scott finally gets her into the little toilet room at Max Muscle there. And I took photos and they left her like knock on the toilet door. She's like, "Is she fucking dead or what?" It's like, Scott's like, "I know where she lives. We'll drive her home." So we had to drive her home.
Leo, that's what I heard about the oral. The oral, when you take it orally, like you feel nothing, and then all of a sudden, like 30 minutes later, you get fucking hit.
This is beginner mistakes. Beginner mistakes.
She was a mess. I remember it was at one of the Arnold Classic or Olympia. Bill Phillips back in the day. They must have been taking that, and I'm not sure if it was. I don't want to say names, but I think someone around it was April Moore. It could have been one of those. It was one of the high fitness girls that was always in the magazines. She took some of that, and she was throwing up and vomiting off her head. And Bill Phillips from EAS, he was on the dance floor thing, fucking pissing himself, and people having to hold him up. I'm thinking, wow, what a great fitness industry this is. I got one.
I've heard of bad stories. I heard if you take too much, you're fucked.
Basically, that's the case.
They were. I think they had to carry Bill out, peeing himself through his pants.
Leo, now I'm scared to take it orally. I should just IV it now.
That's not the right solution.
No, take it orally, but set your camera up because you might get some funny footage.
No, all you have to do is just take a small amount in the beginning, very small, almost so you don't feel it. We wait half an hour, then you take the same amount again. Then you wait again half an hour, and then the third time you take it, if you're going to take it again, that should be your final time. So you actually dose your dose out, so you take it 3 times. So you feel it slowly, so you never overdo it. That's the correct.
It'd be like that scene from Wolf of Wall Street with the Quaaludes, where they just keep taking them because they're out of date, then it hits them, and they're like,
exactly.
Yeah, Lee, I don't know if you heard my last podcast, but I shot at IV. And the GHB, and I literally got high, and I was like wobbly. I was trying to make my eggs, and I was like, I just need to go to bed because I was like dancing in my kitchen. I was so wobbly.
Well, that sounds better. Like I said, the ones I've seen take it orally that take too much, they never end up in a good way. They either end up passed out, peeing themselves, or chirping like birds. So but give it a go. See what happens.
Yeah,
honestly, Lee, it's like, in my opinion, of all the hedonistic recreational drugs, which I don't approve of generally, I don't think that I've gotten, in my lifetime, I think that recreational drugs have taken more from me than they have given me. Like in the way that Winston Churchill used to say, Winston Churchill used to drink from the morning till the evening.
Yeah.
Drink like a Coke and some kind of alcohol from the morning to the evening. But he used to say that he took more from alcohol than alcohol took from him. It's not the same from me. So I don't really support for myself recreational drug use. But of all the recreational drugs I use, the most innocuous were marijuana, followed by, I think, probably GHB. And GHB was also...
But I think, like you said, I think if you take the GHB properly, and like I said, just the small amounts. I think here in Australia they had one called Fanta. It's similar to GHB, where it had to be like you had to take so much per pound body weight, but yet people were like, well, I'll take double that, and they're going out to nightclubs and hitting the dance floor and passing out. So I think a lot of it like that is if you use it properly, because I know like in the beginning Craig Titus would use it just a tiny bit and it'd be okay to sleep, but then they're probably like, oh, if I take a bit more, this is like a bit of a party drug. If I take a bit more,
that's not a good sign, though. I'm not very happy that Craig liked it. Now that Craig likes it, I might revise my opinion a little bit. But I wanted to mention briefly, so he also asked about Raloxifene. I just wanted to say Raloxifene, Luke, is the SERM, which meaning like it like in comparison to Nolvadex or tamoxifen, it is the one with the least side effects, and it is the preferred SERM currently in medicine for breast cancer treatment, not tamoxifen. Well, sometimes tamoxifen is used also, but Raloxifene has overall, if you look at meta-analyses, the least side effects, and so is preferred. Actually, maybe in bodybuilding, Raloxifene should be used more. Boston, have you used Raloxifene before?
I never have, but what do you think about torphine citrate?
I haven't used it or read much about it.
Okay. I heard that was really strong.
The only thing I ever used was Nolvadex. I used to use Nolvadex all the time in Australia, but then when I went to America, maybe a few years in, people were then using a Arimidex. So I tried that, but I didn't really notice any difference from the Arimidex to the Nolvadex. So I just stuck with Nolvadex. It was cheaper.
Did you guys used to use it all year? Sorry, Boston. Yeah.
No, I only ever used it when I was on the cycles and get ready for contests. And then what was that other one that used to hurt your joints? I tried it once. I think Hani might have told me about it. Was it
Provire, and Hani's big on it.
No, was it Cytodrin?
Oh, Cytodrin, anti-cortisol.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, if you take it too long, like your fucking joints would start hurting, and it was bloody,
crazy.
Yeah, that was meant to get you harder.
Did you ever last a long time with Hani or no?
I didn't last at all because when he wanted to help me get ready for the 2009 of Champions, I was living with Mike Yablon. You know Mike Yablon? I used to call him 5 Jacket Mike, because back then at Golds he'd wear 5 jackets to look big. But now on Instagram he's never got his shirt on, so I always laugh. You're the same guy. You're the same guy that lived with me. Yeah, he was living with me. And Hani come over. I think this was before he was the pro creator, because back then Hani would be like, what do you do, Lee, for cardio? I'd say, 2 hours. Is that a much? Is this that? The next thing, he's training Jay Cutler. I got Jay doing 2 hours of cardio. I think everything he gave Jay was pretty much what I was doing. But then he asked, let me see your training, Lee, and I showed him. And then my diet, he goes, well, that's pretty good. He goes, no, I think you should do this. And he gave me a list of about 8 or 9 different drugs. And whenever I got ready for a show, I wouldn't take more than 3 or 4 tops. And then I might only use those 3 or 4 for like 6 weeks and then swap to something else. But yeah, like 8 or 9. I said to Mike, I ain't fucking taking this much. So I just took what I normally took, and he'd come by every couple of weeks. How you looking? He'd be like, oh yeah, they're really working. I can see that one's kicking in. I said to Mike, I'm not even fucking taking that drug, so I don't know what I can see kicking in. Yeah, but and then I did it.
Did you let him do your nutrition, or not really?
No, nothing. He didn't help me do anything. Once I saw the amount of drugs he wanted me to take, I just went, fuck this. And he got mad at me once because I did an MD article. And I said, hey, how did Hani help you? I said, well, he didn't really. He said my diet was good and my training was good. The only thing he wanted to give me was a lot of drugs. He calls me up. You can't go saying that. I said, what's the fucking truth? All you did was, if I was taking 3 or 4 drugs, now you give me a list of 8 or 9. I said, that's the only difference you fucking did. You didn't change my diet or training.
Yeah, his major is biochemistry. He graduated, but he's a big drug guy. He trained a kid I know named Seth Sandler. He was a T national champion. This guy was phenomenal. He could have been a great pro. And he had him at 19. He had him on a boatload of shit too. But Hani came at me a few times too, because I put that information out there. He gets really butthurt when people talk about him.
Yeah, well, it's like if you're gonna do, at least tell the truth, Hani, and tell him this is okay to be this champion. This is the cycle I've got him on. Don't go, oh, he only takes a little bit. It's not like people like Phil, all the ones that Hani trained, Ronnie or Jay or Phil Heath. I've always said my grandmother could give them a diet and fucking training program because they've got so good genetics. Yeah. They would grow no matter what they did. But half these other guys, like you said, I haven't heard that guy, Seth, mate, but I'm sure there's a ton that Hani's probably helped to have either got health problems or have never made it. They haven't become pros from the pro creator. And that's not picking on Hani. That's like there's a lot of gurus out there like that that have so many clients and give them all these drugs and shit, but you never hear about it. They say, oh, no, he just trains hard and stuff like that.
Well, but Patrick is different.
No, Patrick is
Patrick has me eating all day these days. I don't know if you guys noticed. I'm a little bloated these days.
No one knew how to train before Patrick come along. That's why
Patrick changed my life.
I was skipping through the videos the other day, and I was showing my mate the one when I got dressed up as Fuad and how I was saying, before Patrick come along, I just used to hold the bar like this, and then Patrick told me, Fuad, you got to bring the bar down and push it up. I'm like, who knew? Who knew you had to do that? But the thing is, they talk like Patrick's just. I don't know Patrick personally. He's probably a nice guy, but the way they talk about like, oh, Patrick's getting me to do this for my outer sweep on my quad, or I need a bit more here. I'm like, well, why can't you look in the mirror and see that? You're a professional bodybuilder. And that's why I even said, look, I like Ian on the show. Ian's a great guy. Ian got Chris ready for the Olympia. That was the best Chris ever looked. So I'm thinking, how can you get Chris Bumstead in such great shape to win the Olympia, but you yourself go to Patrick? I was like, why can't you get yourself in shape?
No. I wonder about it, Lee. I wonder if it's not a business arrangement, because the amount that they mentioned Patrick, I genuinely started to wonder, it may be something else, because it's odd that so many of them are coached by Patrick. Think about it. Ian, the British guy, and the other British guy. Yeah, both of the British guys. So all three are coached by... Everybody that has a coach is coached by Patrick, almost, except for Nick, I guess. Yeah, right? So basically, I wonder if that's just it. That's why we hear a lot about Patrick. It's not that they're all... Because Ian's too smart. I don't know.
That's what I mean, because Ian got Chris in such great shape.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can get your brother-in-law in shape to win the Classic Olympia, why can't you get yourself in shape? It's like, if you've got someone at the gym you can train with, a good training partner to push it, it's good. You got someone that's honest with you on how you're looking and stuff, and you can see yourself. It's like, I remember Paul Dillett, I told the story many times when he used to go to Chad. Paul was living with me and he had his diet on the fridge there from Chad and that. And I'd look at it and go, oh, that's very basic. I said to Paul, why do you need Chad? You've come this far without him. He goes, oh, because he called me son. He goes, son, he's like, I'm just lazy. He goes, I don't want to think about anything. He goes, if Chad says eat that at that time, I eat it at that time. He goes, I just use Chad because I don't want to think about this. I don't want to think about that. If he tells me to do it, I do it. So who knows?
He probably liked the drug protocols too, though.
Yeah, I never saw his drug protocol. So all I see with Paul was, like, the most I ever seen him take a GH once was about 16 OU, and that was only because he was taking about 6 to 8 a day, but then he had just the thing loaded up. Once he goes, screw it, son, I'm just going to take it now. But then he was sort of like me. He would get the old Winstrol, and you'd get the Winstrol or Stanozol, you go to put in, the thing would clog up. So we're like, it's going to clog up again. So we'd have the coffee table there, and I'd have a syringe of Winstrol. He'd have his there. He's like, "You're going to take yours?" I'm like, "I can't be bothered. I'm going to go to the gym. If I take it now and it doesn't go in, I'm going to be pissed off." And 2 or 3 days later, we both still have our syringes sitting there. We haven't taken it yet. We're like, nah. So I was like, when it came to that sort of thing, we was never really regimented on it. But then it's like that Winstrol too. It's like in the beginning, I was told you got to take it every other day because it was water-based. And I hated it because being water-based, it was the main one. Even if I cleaned the area, I'd always get that big red marker to get really hot and shit like that. I'm like, oh, fuck, now I've got like an infection or something. But then it would go away. So like every 3rd day, every 4th day, then I'm like, someone said, that's really like the tablet. So then I started squirting it in my mouth and it tasted like shit. So it's like, yeah, but I just went to, and I was looking at the bottle one day and it says, I had the veterinary stuff. It says, for a horse takes 2 mil every 2 weeks per 100 kilos. I'm like, well, if a horse that takes 2 mil per 100 kilos every 2 weeks, why the fuck am I taking a mil or so every 2nd day? I said, a horse is bigger than me. So I just started taking it once every 4th day after that. I was like, fuck this. And then I try and get the tabs rather than the injector because I just hated it.
And if you think about it, Lee, those crystals don't just like go away. They stay in your body for a long time. So I don't really think you need to do it every other day.
Yeah, I can tell you the amount of times even Paul would see me one time doing it. He'd go, oh, that's a waste, because I'd put it in and I'd be pushing. I'm like, yeah, it's going in, great. And then it would stop and I'm not taking it out. And I'll be pushing and the thing's bending. I'm like, fuck this. I just take it out and go whack and just squirt it down the bathroom sink. He's like, you just waste. I said, well, fuck it, I'm not putting it back in again. One time I did it. The first time my mum ever
in prep mentally, when I clog my syringes, it would piss me off so bad.
Oh, what about this?
Sometimes the residue at the tip of the needle, and you didn't get everything in.
Well, I hate it. This is how bad I hate injections. Even like when I had this car accident, well, 6 years ago. But then like 2 years in, I was thinking, well, maybe if I get on Deca might help it thing. So my mate gives me a bottle of Deca. I'm like, well, it's been a while since I've taken this. So, okay. And I'm one of these people, if I'm doing, I've got to, my friends call me pushing like 1, 2, no, let me psych up again. I just can't go whack like that. So I finally get it in. As soon as it goes in, I'm like, oh, I must hit a blood vessel. Like, it's fucking aching. And I start pushing it in and it's aching. I pull it out. The blood goes. I said, fuck this.
I hate that.
I only had the one shot. And because it hurt that bad and bled again, I said, fuck taking this shit.
Oh, you have to. Whenever that happens, you know what I'm talking about, Boston? When you inject in and it goes through the blood vessel.
I hate it. You feel it. It's like stings.
But then when you become an expert, you hit the blood vessel. So then you think, should I inject it and then take it out, or should I go somewhere else? And just
while it's in there, you try and move it around somewhere.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, this is, and then either way, you end up having to grab something, swab it, there's blood, and you get in a bad mood and you leave, and then you don't inject for like a week and a half or something.
Yeah, I never.
Leo, because I put pressure on the nerve, and I felt it. It hurt like a bitch, but I kept pushing, and then it just ruptured on me. It was the worst pain I've ever had.
I've done that when I hit, like, I hadn't done the nerve, but I've done the blood vessel, and when I start pushing in, it's just the worst pain. I think I'm in the wrong spot, but I'm like, I'm not taking it out to do again, so I put it in, and then, like, for 4 days, I can barely lift my arm.
Yeah, you got a dead arm. That's a nerve. You hit a nerve. I hate when I do that.
Boston's story is actually pretty interesting, because when I was younger on the forums, I don't know who these people are, but they used to say that, which is really questionable now, honestly, but they used to say you can't hit a nerve with this gauge, like 18 gauge, you can't hit a nerve. But as Boston's saying, you can, and you can damage your nerve, right?
Yeah, they even said I blew out my ulnar nerve, but I didn't hit it. Wait, I put too much pressure on it because I had injected it a few days prior, so it was tender and already like really stressed, and then I tried to force more oil in. I remember it was NPP Master on and Inject Winnie. I know they say never to mix oil-based with water, but like Lee Priest was saying, I hated when water-based like suspension clog. So you mix a little oil in there, it helps it flow. So I would just mix a little bit of oil in there, and that's when it happened.
The only time I had it flow really good was when I had you could get the injectable B12, like the red liquid. I'd put like half a cc of that in with the stanozol and shake it, and then it was pretty good then. But yeah, but
got to shake it like fast.
I had a friend. Yeah, I had a friend that he almost fucked his leg up because he used to use those big long needles, almost like the 19 gauge ones that you draw it out with, and that stuck it in his glute, but he wasn't watching. I think he almost just clipped his sciatic nerve and his fucking leg starts fucking spasming and shit.
I got so sick of that shit clogging, like test suspension windshield. I started using like a 20 gauge. They're like damn fucking harpoons.
Yeah. Nothing worse though when you used to get the shot in the glute, then you get that big egg there, you've hit the wrong spot or just swell it up. Yeah, I mean, you couldn't do leg press or nothing. Only twice in my life did I do my legs. And I listened to my friend. He's like, Lee, you won't feel it. Just do your quad here on the side. I'm like, I'll give it a go. So I did it. I'm like, fuck, he's right. Didn't feel nothing. The next day, I had to grab my pants and just to lift my leg over. Couldn't flex it for a week.
It's like a Charlie horse.
Yeah. He convinces me, Lee, you just hit a bad spot. Do it again on the other side. You'll be right. Oh, I listen. A week and a half later, whacked that leg. Same thing for a week. Couldn't fucking lift this leg. I'm like, fuck that. Never into quads again.
I had friends like that too. They took quad shots very well. They just shot the quads.
I'm one of those
people, and I get fucked up.
No, I've shot like thousands of times in my quads. I used to only shoot the quads. Everything else was uncomfortable. I used to be really wide when I was 22 and I couldn't really shoot the shoulder really easily by myself. So then I didn't know how to shoot most other things. I thought the glute was difficult for me. So I was shooting my quads the whole time and it was very painful. And I was using like 21, 18, stupid stuff, like really dumb, unnecessary stuff.
Well, I remember the days you'd shoot the glute. Sometimes you're a bit bulked up, you turn around, then you get a cramp in your leg, you got to let go and turn back this way. So I'm thinking,
that's what
this must look good. Here I am standing here trying to stretch my lat out because it's cramped and needle hanging out my ass. I'm like, this is great. I think what a fucking sport. What a sport. And then the time I was with Kathy, it must have been early 2000. I only used Tren a few times, but this one time, I mean, it was that bad. I shoved it in my shoulder with an instant. I thought I was having a heart attack. My chest got the tightest it's ever been. I'm like... I couldn't even breathe. The pain was that great. I'm standing there. I got this syringe hanging out my shoulder. I'm like, this is how it fucking ends like this. I hate it.
When that happens, whenever that happens to me, my hypochondria is such that while the thing is, I never got the trend cough in my life, but I'm invulnerable. When that thing, the syringe gets stuck, especially in the glute, I'm thinking, my mind is stuck on this idea. I get stuck, I can't reach it, whatever. My mind is thinking, okay, that's 3 cc's of liquid. The syringe is inside my muscle. Now it's tearing the muscle fibers. It's pushing down. I have to hold the thing. So I'm trying to hold the thing straight, not to, because the needle's actually damaging it. Anyway, it's really stupid.
Have you ever had it though, when you used to do a shot where you got in scar tissue and you're pushing it and it's going smooth. It could be oil and then it just stops and then it blows off and the needle's in your arm, but you're holding the syringe in your hand.
Thank God never happened to me.
When the pressure and it blows up, you lose the oil, it drives me nuts.
And like my syringe part, I'll be holding in the hand and the needle's still in my arm. I'm like, what the fuck?
All right, guys. The next question is a personal one, so I'm trying to pick one of two. I think I'm going to pick
I'm circumcised. Yes, I'm circumcised.
No, I'm going to pick the funnier one, which is for you, Lee, actually. So it's from Bostin. So number one, he's going to ask a question, but he also recommends that you read Manufacturing Consent by Noam Chomsky. I wouldn't have mentioned this otherwise, but actually, it's not for Lee. I just want to mention to the audience, it's actually a really fantastic book, actually. I have read it. Noam Chomsky is a little, people sometimes think he's a little extreme and stuff, but that book is fantastic and it's life-changing. For me, I read it when I was 21 I was younger, maybe 18. It changed the way I look at the world completely. Because basically, I don't think Lee actually needs to read it. Lee is quite the opposite. Lee really questions when he reads media. So basically, the book is about how journalists frame language in news articles where they without telling you that they suppose an argument, they suppose facts without saying them. So you know what I mean? So they sort of convince you without directly being clear that they're trying to convince you.
It's like CNN.
Yeah. Basically, CNN does that constantly. Exactly. So it's actually not that. But anyway, his question was this, and I want to answer his question after you. But he said, please ask Lee why he said that the majority of terrorists are Muslim.
No, I didn't. I said what my exact quote was. I said, not all terrorists are Muslim. Now, I said, not all terrorists are Muslim, but the majority. No, I said, not all Muslims are terrorists. That's what I said. I said, not all Muslims are terrorists, but the majority of terrorists are Muslim. That's what I said.
That's true.
So it was interesting. So I was thinking about it, and I'm sure this gentleman, maybe he's from the Middle East or he's Muslim, and just so he knows, I'm sure he knows that I'm half Arab and, you know, I come from a Muslim background and so on. So I'm not offended by Lee's statement because, look, to be honest with you, I grew up in Dubai, and I just...
Yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was. It was not all Muslims are terrorists, but most terrorists were Muslim. That was said at the time when all those bombings were going on. No,
you said not most Muslims are terrorists. Like, most Muslims are not terrorists.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said
terrorists
most
are Muslims.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah.
So no. What I wanted to say is it true that most terrorists are Muslims? So then people may say, oh no, well, you could consider the IRA terrorists. You could consider Irish people terrorists. You could consider any freedom fighting.
And back then, though, when the IRA was going on, yes, they probably would have outnumbered the Muslim people, but this was at the time.
Actually, wait a minute. This is an interesting subject you're talking about, which many people don't know that are listening. The Irish and the Palestinians actually are people that have a lot of camaraderie. And the Arab world, we love Irish people, and Irish people also love Arabic people, or to some degree, what I hear from Irish people. I don't know if it's true. The Irish people listening could comment.
You know why the Irish love the Arabic? They need good bomb makers. Now they're going to get mad about that. I'm just joking, people.
They fight solidarity. I know. He's joking. But anyway, what I wanted to say really quickly is like, you know, we grew up in the Middle East. Like, I had a lot of friends who thought that America should be destroyed and that they supported, you know, and this was common. This was common in the Iraq War. And I grew up, remember, I was in high school there in the Iraq War and in the Afghanistan War. So many of those people, you know, they didn't. First of all, in their minds, they saw Palestine and what happened to the Palestinian people, and they think that the U.S. supported that. And then after that, they think that we had no role without 9/11, and then the U.S. came and invaded all our countries. They think that the U.S. is controlling the puppet governments that are terrorizing their people and torturing them and so on. So there was actually a lot of antagonism toward the West.
Well, I'd always say, look, I totally understand, because if you're in your country and all of a sudden this other country comes and invades you in the disguise of wanting to get terrorism, but in doing so, look how many innocent people got killed. And if your family was one of these innocent people that got killed doing nothing, of course you're going to hate the West and go, you know what, I want to kill them all. I want to do this. I totally understand that. Of course.
This is not to say...
Yeah. Well, I said, trying to get the terrorists, the sad thing is, look how many innocent people were killed during that. And I could understand why this hatred builds up for the West and stuff, Well,
I mean, the Arabs will look at it this way. They'll look like, it was well known. There's no question about it. Saddam Hussein was one of the biggest enemies of terrorists in the world. Saddam Hussein prevented Iraq from becoming a terrorist nation. Attacking him would no way has anything to do with terrorism. He was an enemy of terrorists. He would never attack he was completely against terrorists. He would never be in line with them. He would never join them against the US, nothing like that. He didn't like Islamic extremism. He hated Islamic extremism.
Because even like they said, as bad as, I heard a few people say, as bad as he was though, Saddam, he had his bad things, what he did, but yet, like you said, he kept everything in control still. It was all under control when he was there. So look what happened.
So think of this, when America invaded for Saddam, all the Arab people immediately knew, this is bullshit. There's no way they think this guy is. So that's the problem. So I grew up. So all I'm trying to say here is this. No, Lee is not wrong. Like, dude, there may not be a lot of, I don't know if most terrorists are Muslim, but I'll tell you what, there's a lot of Muslims who support terrorism. Much more than any kind of support of terrorism in the world. And whether, that is definitely wrong, because if you want to fight for your people, you should fight on the battlefield, or you should fight the military. You should not fight civilians.
Well, that's what I've always said. Look, I always say, listen, I always say, look, if any terrorist wants to come to Australia, I say, listen, leave the innocent people alone.
Fight the military.
Leave the shopping centres alone. No, I'll give you the address of the fucking government house. If you want to go blow something up, go blow up the fucking politicians, because they're the ones sitting there making all these rules, telling the military who to go and invade and shit. Because I have to think sometimes, I'd have to be in the military, it's like, but when you're in the military, it's like back in Hitler's day, there must have been shit that some of these soldiers were doing because they were told to do it. But in their mind, they're like, this isn't right. But yet if we don't do it, we're going to get executed. So it's like war doesn't seem to solve anything.
Someone listening to this will think, no, but Lee, there's a lot of white terrorism recently in the last few years. Now, I don't know the numbers. I don't study the statistics. But let me.
Yeah, Timothy McVeigh.
You had him a while ago. Then you had the guy in New Zealand, and then you had Ted Kaczynski is his name, the Unabomber.
The Unabomber.
Yeah, from Colorado. No, he wasn't Colorado. Wyoming or North Dakota. He was somewhere there.
Yeah, he went for how many years before they caught him? He went for
a while.
But it was after the government mainly, wasn't he? Sending letters to the government.
It was interesting. But he used to blow up like scientists' arms and stuff. It was like random. But the point is, those things usually come from a people that feel oppressed. And so maybe instead of like, I don't know if it is that white people are more terrorists now or not, but maybe they feel oppressed, and maybe white men feel oppressed or whatever like that. But anyway, there are a lot of Muslim terrorists. That's true.
I got no white guilt here. Okay.
Thank God. Wow.
And I'm not apologizing to the women for being male either. Fuck them.
Yeah. But Leo, Muslim is a religion, so there could be white Muslims.
There are, and there are many white Muslim terrorists. In fact, there are many. They were in Iraq. They were fighting and so on. Yeah.
So if we said like Arabs are terrorists, I would see why people get messed up. But to say Muslims, most terrorists are Muslim, I think that's a pretty accurate statement, because in the Quran,
there's been a few.
Of all religions, which religion has the most terrorists? Yeah. No way. It must be Muslim, right? Yeah.
Well, I think America's had a few. Well, they call them like Muslim terrorists, but yet they were white people who converted over to Islam. Yeah. But I mean, and when I say Islam, I'm talking about extreme Islam, because we know that proper Islam isn't about going to blow people up and cut heads off and stuff like that. So whenever I talk about stuff like this, I'm talking about the extreme. And I mean, there's extreme idiot Christians. There's extreme idiot in all religions that go out and do shit. You got pedophile priests going out there fucking raping young boys. So.
Yeah, but nothing about Christianity entails a priest should be a pedophile. So in Christianity, the reason I believe, and I've tried to study this as much as I could, the reason I believe priests tended to be pedophiles is not a mixture of things, maybe opportunity, not being married, so on. But historically, a man who chose to go to the Catholic priesthood is a man who didn't really want to have sex with people that much. If he was going to be legitimate. In the 1600s, 1500s, they used to have kids or whatever on the side. But in the 1800s, 1900s, that's actually where a lot of homosexual people decided to spend their life, so their parents don't bother them, because
I should have known when I was young and I was going to Catholic church, and the priest said, "Get on your knees, Lee, and I'll put the body of Christ in your mouth." And it wasn't a wafer. Let me tell you. It was the.
But my point is, no. There is an element. I don't want to get too much into detail of this, but there is an element of Islam, honestly, because I used to study Islam a lot. There's an element that look, even if you look at the Old Testament in Judaism or in Christianity, the Old Testament is violent. Like the Old Testament, if you read it, if you take it literally, it's like there's stoning women, there's stoning stuff. So it's there too. But Islam is similar, but Islam also has a political element. It has a state. So that's why Islam has this potential to create this kind of behavior.
Well, I think
Islam doesn't have this idea of attacking innocence. That's not in Islam whatsoever. Zero.
I think too, like you said, because back in those days, like you said, when you look back to the Old Testaments and that, and a lot of, like I said, they used to do that, but it just seems like even though they did that, some religions have moved on and don't do it anymore, whereas some are still stuck in that ideology of this is what we've got to do, this is what it says to do. So they haven't moved on from, they look back to the Spanish Inquisitions and stuff like that.
That's true. And by the way, I've spoken to religious Muslims about this, and you know what their response will be? It was because the Christians in the West, they don't really believe what they say they're Christians, but the book they're reading, they don't believe in half of it. So then why are you believing the religion? If you don't believe in half of it, then don't believe in any of it. So they make sense too, but then you're like, okay, you make sense. It's internally self-consistent, except that, then you get into the details of the religion, but then it becomes an opinion thing. Okay, another personal question. What is your individual, what were your worst fears in your lives? I'll start with Bostin. And Bostin has no fears. He has no shame. Every time we ask him a question like this every week, he's like, I've never been shamed. I've never been embarrassed. I've never been.
Worst fear to me is like losing my child. now.
You've had that since. So how does that come about, by the way? Every parent says that.
We had a really bad delivery, man. We had a really, because he was in the NICU for 16 days and stuff. That's probably the worst fear of mine. You know, like just the other day, I had my dad over here, and I was talking to Ariel. I said, you know, if something was to happen to us, like if we were to get in a car accident or a plane crash or whatever it was, you know, anything, who would we want Jackson to go to? And we have many options. We have my mom, her, you know, my dad. We talked about it. I think that would be the number one thing. And for my earlier days, getting rejected by women was always a really big fear of mine.
Me too. Mine
was always dying young. I always thought I was going to die young. But my mother said that was her biggest fear too, because I remember in my 20s, for no reason, I just thought I'm probably going to die young. And then I get through 20, I'm like, I'll probably die in my early 30s. And I got through the early 30s. And the more I got on, I'm like, no, I'm going to live now a lot longer. I keep thinking I'm going to push for this age now. But yeah,
why did you think that though? Because the bodybuilding?
No, it wasn't even the bodybuilding. I just thought that, you know, I'd die young and stuff like that. Because, you know, when you're just enjoying life and things are going well, something bad always seems to happen. And then you'd always watch those movies and documentaries about these famous people like James Dean or someone like that, where their careers just take it off and all of a sudden shit happens. And then you'd see, like, I knew a few assholes in life and later on in life that would screw people over. They'd be like the most miserable people, but they'd live forever and be rich. And these good people that would do good would end up, like you said, and there might have been a family that would give their money to the homeless and help out, and yet they'd get killed in a car accident, but yet this asshole fucking lives forever. So it'd be like...
That's true. It seems like always those ones live forever. Yeah, they're stingy, they're assholes, and they just live, and they're angry, but they don't die.
Yeah. Well, look at George Soros. How old's Soros now? And
it's like 95. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Or the Rothschilds. Some of them, they look like vampires.
You know, he went to undergrad at my grad school, George Soros. He's an interesting character. You know, if you look at a lot of his investments, they're very suspect, actually. I always thought that he was living off inside information and contacts and stuff like that.
Even when you look back at the Rothschilds, how far back they go to the 15th, 16th century, where they were funding wars both sides back then, and the English Empire. They're still, I think they're still involved somewhere.
No, they are. No. The Rothschilds just bailed out Dubai in 2007. That was the Rothschild Bank in England. Yeah. They bailed out a government again. They're famous for bailing out governments. That's the most historically in terms of.
And in return, what do they get for bailing that government out?
Suspect, right? Yeah. Like talk about conspiracy theories. The Rothschild Bank coming to bail out Dubai, right? Yeah, I know.
But then I sometimes think too, when they do that, is the Rothschild Bank, because they're into everything, and they're the ones that put the country into that position. And then they're like, hey, we'll come help you now. And so now you're indebted to them and stuff. It's like,
it very well could be the case, because it was so interesting to me to think, why was the Rothschild the funder? Because it could have been an American bank. Why a British bank? Now, we were colonized by the British. The Rothschilds were involved, by the way, in the Israeli formation. They're very involved in the government, potentially our governments historically. Anyway, there's some. Okay, let's move to some bodybuilding.
Down the rabbit hole.
It could go somewhere. Yeah, let's not do it. Okay, so they wanted to know. So Diego Bess asked, he wanted to know Lee and Boston's viewpoint on the upcoming Indy Pro featuring Justin Rodriguez, Nick Walker, Awodibu, etc.
Is that the one Blessing's in too?
Yeah, Blessing, that's him. Awodibu.
Yeah. Well, I've seen like the little war, the entertainment between Blessing and Nick and that, but it's going to be hard to say because, anyone knows, seeing pictures online, shit, if I died it down, I could look good by myself standing at home under the right light. Then I get on stage, I go, fuck, Lee looks like a bag of shit. But, anyone by themselves. So when you see him in the gyms, okay, Blessing looks good, Nick's looking good, and that Justin, he looks good too. So until they all get on stage, and, how many times have we seen Boston before where we've seen guys who pitches up a week before an Olympia, you think this guy's going to win the Olympia, come the day of the show, he barely makes the top 10. So until I see people on stage now, I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, it's fun to see the photos and see the interaction between who's going to beat who, but I never really go with anything to the day of the show because so much shit can change. You can see someone looking good, and then we all get that stupid thing in our head. If I just do this the last week, and if I do this, I can look a bit better. Then it backfires, and you look like shit. So
okay, two sub notes.
You got Blessing is working with Chad. You got Justin Rodriguez is working with AJ Sims. By the way, I compete against Justin Rodriguez. I know you probably know that.
I didn't know that.
In 2015, he beat me in the overall, obviously, at the Connecticut show. And he's made crazy improvements. And then you got Nick Walker, who works with Jansen. I'm going to say that I think Justin Rodriguez will place higher, and then I'll have Nick Walker, and then I'll have Blessing. I'm not saying 1, 2, 3. I'm just saying I think Justin will place higher, and then it'll be Nick, and then it'll be Blessing.
Do you think Blessing might come in? So I'm just wondering now, because Chad's done Rami, and Rami's Mr. Olympia. Is the pressure on Chad now to get Blessing in there looking that incredible that everyone's thinking, okay, well, Chad didn't do Mr. Olympia, so is Blessing gonna?
Yeah. So what would Chad's incentive be with Blessing? Blessing has dark skin, so I assume, I don't know his history, but is he a watery guy?
It's hard to say, but Chad's trained.
That is going to dry him out.
Chad's trained a lot of my friends, and he's big on a lot of junk loading, and he's big on a lot of diuretics.
Yeah, diuretic.
So me and Lee Priest both know when you add a lot of diuretics and you add a lot of junk food, it could go either way. You could either nail it or you could like really fuck it up. And I've seen both ways. Like, I don't know if you remember that, Lee, when Chad Nichols worked with Dennis Wolf at the and Dennis placed dead last at that show. He was sweating on stage. And then he went back to Milos and he started placing again. So you never really know, because it's his first time working with William. Because Blessing was with what's his name, Neil Hill. And then he dropped Neil Hill, and then now he's working. So you really don't know. But I do know that Chad loves diuretics, because I was in the hotel room, and I know he loves junk food. So when you add those in, you never know. You never know.
Interesting. I wanted to make one note though, Lee. I should know that there are people that take pictures by themselves and still look bad, including myself. So there is still the accomplishment.
Well, you obviously don't have the right app then, do you, to touch it up?
That's true though. So yeah, you need to use the apps. Okay, so Davis Campbell asked something that he says, Boston, how does Juan Morel eat so much BS and look the way he does? I know this is specific to Boston. Lee, do you know the details of Juan Morel's diet? I don't think so.
Ask Lee, because he used to eat like that.
Off season, I'd just eat like a pig. The heaviest I got off season, I'm 5'5". I'd get to like 285, 135 kilos. But I just loved eating, and because I eat so clean. But the thing was, even off season, sometimes I still might eat clean. Like I might have steak and rice, and then an hour later, I'm like, I feel like Chinese now. I'll have Chinese. Yeah. And then an hour after Chinese, I'll have a bag of chips and some chocolate. Oh, now I'll have chicken breast and vegetables. Now I'll go have a liter of ice cream. So it was all the shit that I was eating in between. And because I love dairy products, whenever I had milk or dairy, I'd carry that much fluid. I'd just like that, like a tick.
How about those epic pictures of you in the KFC bucket?
Oh, yeah, in the muscle bag and that, yeah. Mike Matarazzo would just call me a tick. He goes, "You look like a tick about the pop." You're that full.
Lee, you wouldn't like Patrick's coaching then, because he doesn't believe in cheat meals. He said he won't let his clients have any cheat meals. No cheat meals.
Yeah. Well, I used to like doing it. I never did it because I tried to get to a certain weight. It was just that because you're so strict come diet time. Well, there could be weeks where I wouldn't eat junk, but yet I was the type of person, if I felt like something and it's off season, I'd go eat it. And if I felt like Chinese 3 times a week, I'd go have it. But then after a while, I'm like, okay, I'm sick of Chinese. I'll eat clean maybe a week. And then it could be McDonald's I'll get stuck on, or ice cream. So if I felt like something in the off season, I just never deprived myself of having it. I'd go eat it.
Never lost your appetite? Never?
Not really. Occasionally towards the end when I got really bulked up, I would. And if it was like summertime and it's really hot, I just hated eating if it was hot. So I'd have a lot of shakes and just start making shakes with like bananas and oats and honey. And sometimes I get chocolate chips, Chips Ahoy biscuits, and put inside the blender and blend up that too. So,
Boston, how's your appetite?
My appetite's okay, man. Like yesterday, like I'm since my dad was in town, I was only eating like 3 times a day. But when we went out to eat, I was eating massive amounts, like hibachi. I was eating a lot and stuff like that. But there's appetite stimulants that I'm looking into, and one of them I wanted to bring up to you because it's actually an anti-OCD medication, and it helps bring people's appetite up. But it's also an antidepressant. But a lot of bodybuilders are using it now. It's called metropazine or something.
Mirtazapine. That's a great idea for bodybuilders. Oh wow, they already know about it. Great idea.
It's getting a little bit of traction.
It has the most of all the antidepressants. It stimulates appetite the most. In fact, it's also great, by the way, Lee, for sleep. Amazing. Like one of the best medications for sleep.
Great. So I'm going to sleep and get fat.
Yeah, you'll get fat. You'll eat, you'll have a good time, and you'll go to sleep. It's really great. Honestly, it's really great. Like whenever people are having anxiety and having issues with sleep but don't need a antipsychotic, Mirtazapine is an antidepressant, but it's really great. Like really relaxing, makes you hungry, sleepy, you go to sleep. It doesn't harm.
And the fatter I get, if I keep taking it, I won't be depressed about being fat. I'll just keep getting fatter.
I got some coming in, Leo, but yeah, not many people know about it, but one guy leaked it to me, so I want to try it, and he said it worked better than Megastrol. He said it worked better than
you'll get hungry, yeah.
And I don't know if Lee knows, but Chad Nichols loves Marinol for appetite, but it's like impossible to get. I can't find it.
Is that one you're talking about? Is it just a tablet, is it, or?
Yeah, the antidepressant, yeah.
Yeah, Mirtazapine definitely. It stimulates appetite so much that usually psychiatrists have to stop giving it to people within a month. Otherwise, they get too fat. The great thing is it improves both REM and non-REM sleep, which is very, very few drugs do. Like GH does, but like all the benzos, all the sleep meds, they all usually worsen
doesn't give you any groggy feeling the next day, or?
No, it might. Depends how much you take. But it's really an innocuous kind of thing. But by the way, isn't Juan Morel the guy with the cookies? He's a cookie guy. So okay, so he didn't then. He actually in the last competition it affected him when he was eating his cookies beforehand.
Yeah, I think I watched on one of Fuad's shows. Yeah, they said that he was backstage eating the cookies to carb up on, wasn't he? And it sort of he went too far or something. Didn't they say he ate too many? Exactly.
I think Boston froze, but we'll continue with. I think I'll answer. We only have a couple left. I don't know where Boston went. But I'll answer. So Lee, tell me, have you, Ishtiaq asked you, have you had, Boss, you're back. Have any of you had a paranormal experience? And also he says, do you think aliens exist? And if so, have we been visited by them?
Yes.
So
Roswell, yeah. I believe the government hides all that stuff. And I believe one of the reasons they hide it is because if they brought out, yes, aliens exist, one reason people might go nutty thinking it's Independence Day, but then if they bring out aliens exist, that might throw religion way out left field. You know what I'm talking about? left, is that right?
Left field, way in left field, using the right arm.
Yeah. That would throw religion out the window almost thing. Yeah, but I reckon there is. But paranormal, I used to live in this house when I was younger, and I'd always have the same dream sometimes that someone was chasing me and I couldn't move, but they were getting closer to me. It's like I was in the house in the hallway. And, you know, if someone grabs you on the back of the neck and they do that on your nerves there and you get that real tingly feeling, that feeling wouldn't go away forever and ever. I'd have to wake up to get rid of it. And then I'd have the same dream that the person was chasing me, grab me on the neck. I'd fall off the cliff, and it's a long way down. But, you know, before you hit the bottom, you generally wake up. I'd hit the water. I'd sink to the bottom, and if I didn't wake up, I'd just keep repeating. I was on top of the cliff, and I'd fall in through the water and that. And there was always this feeling on the back of the neck. And I was talking to this one time, and I somehow bumped into the people that used to own the house before us, and we got talking. Like, oh, you lived at that house up on the hill? I said, yeah. Like, oh, do you know the house is haunted and that? I'm like, is it really? I said, I didn't know that. He goes, yeah. I was telling him about my dreams I had. Oh, he goes, yeah. The thing, he goes, oh, yeah, the person that used to live there drowned and that. I'm like, oh. It's like, and my dream was always about going into the water. If I didn't wake up, I'd be back on the cliff. I'd fall in the water. But it was always that grab on the back of the neck and just that feeling just constantly till I woke up. But that's about the only paranormal type thing. I've tried to sit there like Uri Geller and bend spoons and shit, like, oh, fuck it, and I just bend it.
What about you?
Weren't you young? I'd see Uri Geller, I'd get a pen like this and I'd put it on the table and I'd sit there and concentrate.
Hey,
like,
Lee, do you still feel let down? Do you feel let down? I still do. I wish it happened.
Now, I even breathe on it a bit.
I tried everything. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what about you? Nothing moves.
Boston, do you think there are paranormal things in the world like ghosts and witchcraft and stuff like that? Oh, I think he froze again. Well, if he froze, I'll tell you my side, Lee. So in the Middle East, people all believe in witchcraft. Like when I grew up, Yeah, everyone believed in it. So it was like a different world a little bit. Maybe even when you grew up in Australia, maybe people used to, I don't know, did people believe in spells? Did old people believe in that?
I think so. More like, not, you wouldn't say it was voodoo type, but they believe like you could put like a spell on someone, like if something bad was happening to someone, be like, oh, someone must have put a spell on you to, someone doesn't like, not like a voodoo doll, but, you know, someone's done something and gone to see someone and they've wished you nothing but bad luck or something for the rest of your life. And
that's
like
a different thing also. Yeah, so in Arabic culture, they have that too, which is beyond, it's even before Islamic culture. It's called like the evil eye or like hasad in Arabic. But they also have another thing, which is actual sorcery. So it was commonly believed, and not only that, but it's like similar to Jamaican culture or African culture with the voodoo, is that there were a lot of sorcerers around. It was just commonly done. So whether it was true or not, a lot of people were doing it for sure. I mean, you wouldn't meet someone who did it, but you would hear about stuff like that. So, for example, I grew up in a house from the age of 10 onwards until like 17 when I went to college that had a lot of sorcery on the house. It happened to have lived, the person who lived in it before my father and me was my uncle, who was apparently like very hot-tempered or whatever. And so a lot of people got upset with him, put sorcery on him, and they used to write in Islamic sorcery, they write like a piece of paper and they dig it into the ground. So my uncle had shown me, I was there, he's shown me like a bag of papers he pulled out of the ground. That's when I just moved in the house. So I knew at the age of 11 that there was sorcery here. My cousins and actually everybody in the neighborhood, the house was like not fixed. It looked like a haunted house from the outside. So all my cousins were scared to death to go in this house. Now, I lived there for like 7 years, but nothing ever happened to me. But I lived there and it was scary a little bit. Like it was big and like dark. But nothing ever happened to me. And, well, that's all I have to say. Like, everyone believed in it. Nothing ever happened.
It makes you wonder, because you watch, like, documentaries, whether it be on the Emityville horror house that they made movies about, or, you know, there's different stories where you can watch some on TV where, I don't mean the ones, like, you get those ones like Ghost Hunter where they're going around, they go, is anyone in here? And they go, play it back. Oh, that's the voice. That's the voice. Did you hear that? That's definitely a voice. Get out. Oh, what's that? It's like them shows like that are a bit, reality shows are a bit weird. But when you watch those actual documentaries where they interview families where stuff has happened to them, or they've interviewed priests that have gone and done exorcisms and they've talked about stuff they've seen.
I've been in the room in an exorcism before, by the way. Yeah. So let me tell you, no, this is very common there. Like my close friend when I was 16, he said that. So a lot of us were told in the Middle East that we had sorcery put on us. So like when I was younger, I was told that when I was I was told that when I
didn't want you to think I was doing magic. I actually got 2 cups.
Yeah, I was told that it was put on me. And then this friend of mine was told that it was put on him. And he started acting. Now, I don't know if this is real or not, but he started acting like he was possessed. And so at one point I was with him, he asked for support and stuff. So I went one day and he went to like an Islamic guy who did an exorcism on him. Yeah. And he was like shaking. He spoke in tongue in front of me. Now, I don't know if he was schizophrenic, if he was imagining it, if it was real or whatever, but I've seen it in front of my face where like the guy would read Quran and then he would start speaking in tongues. So this spirit possessed him and then would leave him. And he would tell me he would be aware of it. He would see it happening, but not in control of his mouth.
Yeah, I just think there's so much. I'd never say no because I like to keep an open mind. It's like even when you come to the aliens and the UFOs, yeah, there's some crackpots out there and stuff. But then when you look at the other side where you've had astronauts, you've had top fighter pilots. I mean, you've had people that are pretty switched on, cluey people saying this is what I've seen or given reports. Yes, they've seen unidentified flying objects, whether it's a UFO like a spaceship or just something else, but yet, you know, when they've been in their plane and they see something on the radar that's moving faster than anything that we've got and stuff like that, I just like to keep an open mind. It just makes you wonder, hey, rather than just say, no, there's nothing out there. It's like when people say, do you think there's life out there in the other galaxies? I'm thinking, well, to say no would be pretty silly because there's so many galaxies that have so many planets beyond what we could ever imagine.
Because we're alive. We're alive. Why would you think
that? Yeah. To think that we're the only life form, and personally, I like to think there's other life forms out there because I think if we're the top of the chain, the top species of intelligence, we're all doomed. Yeah, if we're in, I'm hoping there's something above us. And I always used to think that we're like, you know, those little ant farms you get when you're a kid, and those little bug houses.
Yeah.
I figure like we're like, I wouldn't say Down syndrome because that's going to upset people, but it's like, let's just say there's aliens at a superior race, or you watch the beginning of 300 when the kids are born deformed and they dump them off a cliff. I'm thinking there's a higher species of alien. We're the rejected ones. Are like, yeah, just send them to Earth. Let's just watch how they carry on. Yeah, there's some Asian-looking ones there, but up there they're probably called something else. But there's some white skin, there's some dark. Yeah, throw them all down there. Let's just watch them. It's entertainment. Look how they're arguing. They're arguing about skin color. Hey, let's just throw religion in the mix. That'll get them going there. Let's get them going. It's like, we're just entertainment.
But think about this, though. If you were an alien and you saw them, you would think they're different subspecies, right?
Oh,
you would also
if aliens saw us and they say to us, well, why haven't they contacted us? Aliens will look at us and go, yeah, let's take a left turn at Saturn and go back the other way. Look at those idiots. I said, they're probably watching us from up high. It's like, you know, when we watch a comedy show on TV and you're laughing your head off, they've probably got their whatever satellite they got on their planet, and their main entertainment is us humans, just someone going to work. Oh, look, he's arguing with Ned at the office today. Look at him go, arguing over parking space. Oh, my God, guess what? He just shot him. He shot him and killed him over a parking space. This is great entertainment. Bloody humans, look at them. Can't even get along.
I would hope so. It would be nice if there was some other species that was steering the ship, actually, and capable.
Well, I used to always think when I was young, did you think when you were young, too, for a second, that I used to sometimes think that, this is how my weird thinking was, that, you know, when you dream and you'd go into a dream, that's when someone else, say you dreamt about some kid doing something or whatever, that's his life. And then I think when I wake up, I'm really just somebody's dream. This isn't really happening. This is just someone making this shit up.
I never thought about that because my dreams kept changing. They wouldn't go. Yeah. There'd be different, all kinds of weird. I mean. Yeah. I'm just
stuck in this.
No, I know what you mean.
Nightmare.
Because it's an alternate reality. Exactly. Yeah,
it's like
you're a very intelligent child. Yeah. You're like, where is this reality?
Yeah, there's like alternate universes. There's something happening over here, or there's another Lee. There's another Lee over there doing something else.
Area 59 really interests me. I wonder what goes on there.
It doesn't exist. It's 51.
Area 59 is the real secret one that no one knows about.
I was a bit slow for that one. Okay, but no. But anyway, but have you ever seen a ghost thing or anything like that happen to you?
I have not myself. My mom says that there's ghosts though, but I haven't seen.
I would have bet that Boston would have been scared of ghosts or something random like that. Okay, anyway, so this is the Blood Lord asks: would Boston or Lee trade their current condition, either kidney damage or nerve damage, for the others, assuming both are either recoverable or non-recoverable? I don't know what the last part means, but basically. How do you relate to each other, being that Lee, your nerve damage affects you a lot psychologically because the thing you're most known for you can't get. Boston, you can train fully, but it's scary. It's sort of different. It's an interesting question.
I can't take the drugs I want, and I can't eat the way I want.
Mm-hmm. If I had a choice between my nerve damage or kidney damage, I think I'd probably take the nerve over kidney. Just personally. It's like personally, I'll take the nerve damage. It's like I can still do stuff.
Me. Of course, I hope you would take the nerve damage.
Yeah, it's not like my arms atrophied a bit, but I could live with a 2-inch smaller arm than rather to go if I had to go get some.
I was unsure because you're so depressed about the arm, so I was like, maybe he's gonna say that. No, I don't know.
Have you ever had health issues, Lee?
Touch wood, no. Apart from tearing a shoulder moving the TV, and then I did get back in early 2000. I had a really bad flu and that, and I got a virus which caused cardiomyopathy on my heart, but then it cleared up after 8 months. Yeah, but never had a problem. Then ever since then, I've always had my stress test done every year, and my heart size hasn't changed. The ventricles are working well again. Yeah, it's just that 1 year I got that cardiomyopathy, and then nothing with liver, kidneys, or I've had high creatinine levels before when once I was dehydrated training for a show, I wasn't drinking enough and just kept busting my ass, and I went to the
How high are we talking though?
Well, I'm not sure because over there you just go by 1 point something, don't you? Or 2 point. In Australia, I think high here is 450, 500. Anything beneath that's normal. Mine was at the time near 3,000, and the guy's like, "What were you doing?" I said training. He goes, "Oh, we see levels this high in crash victims, like a car accident, someone and the muscles got trauma and stuff.
Yeah.
But generally when I saw a sports doctor, just from training every day and doing what I was doing, that mine every time after that, mine was always around 1,200 to 1,300. And even, like I said, normal was 455, but even 1,200, if I went to see a normal doctor and he saw 1,200, he'd be like, oh my God, you're way over, you know.
That's why Lee, we use now, instead of creatinine, we either use cystatin C or SDMA also as proxies. These don't get affected by muscle, by working out, tearing a muscle, or your muscle size. So you can use it as a proxy. But I just found this out about SDMA.
That's what the doctor said to me. He's like, even though your creatinine is 6 and your GRF is at 10, he's like, your GRF is probably around 25 to 28. He said, but because your muscle mass.
Yes, bro. You've still not gotten that. Yeah, it could be good. A little bit of good news, at least. You know, I want to see that.
I used to see a sports doc. When I lived in LA, I saw a sports doctor. His name was Robert Kerr. You might be able to find one of his books. He used to be one of the Olympic doctors for the Olympic team, and he got kicked off because in an interview once he was talking about steroids in the Olympics. They're like, well, how do you know? He's like, I gave him to some of the team, the American team, but his name was Robert Kerr. He did a book in that year, so I'd always see him. So when I would go see him, I could tell him what I was taking. He knew what to look for. So any area, he goes, no, that's just normal. He goes, but if you went to see just a normal doctor, he'd probably be like, oh my God, this is going to collapse you, going into failure here. You're like totally panicking. But because he was a sports doctor and he saw so many athletes, bodybuilders, like I said, track and field athletes, footballers, baseballers, he's seen the whole gamut. So to him, that wasn't out of the ordinary type thing.
Did you train extremely heavily, or you use the more of higher volume, lower weights?
I'd go, well, when I was training like dumbbells, I'd use 180s, 200-pound dumbbells and stuff. And I have squatted like 7.5 plates and that, but I'd stick around 5, 6 on a good day. So I'd always do a high volume, but I'd go heavy as well. But I'd never be like...
You were like a mini Ronnie, sort of. You were doing heavy and the volume. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'd always use good form. I'd never go to the point where I'd use sloppy form to lift a heavy weight. If I couldn't lift it, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do singles or, you know, 1 rep stuff and that. I'd always...
your joints aren't fucked up now.
No, the only joint I got screwed up at the moment is his shoulder a bit, because for the last few years since the car accident, it's had to compensate for this side. So it's like just totally all messed up. Everything I do now, this shoulder hurts. But now, touch wood, I get the odd ache and pain in the knees here. Like I could go do legs one day and I'm like, wow, it feels great. I got a pump in my quads. Next time I go to do something, the knees hurt and then the legs are going like they're shaking. You can't control the shaking. I'm like, oh, bloody hell, my knees are falling apart. But then it'll go away. So, yeah, but
you look 20 years younger than you are, so you could just accept that and be happy, because there are other people. Yeah,
you didn't even think I was close to 50, did you?
No, I had no idea. I don't know how I didn't know. I thought you must have arrived in America as a baby or something. When you came and got your pro card, you were a baby. I had no idea.
That day,
we look the same age.
The same age.
Yeah, we look. You and I look the same age, actually. So you should be happy about that. Don't worry about your joints.
It's a good thing. My doctor also has the laser clinic and does Botox as well.
Well, I wish I lived next to your doctor and I was friends with you, so I could get some laser. I'm trying to laser a little thing here, and I'm trying to find a good clinic.
Next time you see me when I come on, I'll be like this.
I'm gonna see you next time if I come to California. Hopefully, Boston will be here.
Lee, I was gonna ask you: is Joe Wheatley gonna fly you out this year, or you don't know because of COVID?
I was speaking to him not long ago, and he still is up in the air because he was hoping to get the shows on early in the year, but I think they're still going to be cancelled due to the amount of people you can have in the crowd and that, which I find weird. Here in Australia, they were trying to ban the Anzac, the Anzac March thing for the war veterans. They're trying to cut it down to 3,000 and 5,000, no dawn service. But yet we're having rugby matches, football matches with 50,000 in a stadium. I'm like, I don't get how they can have like 50,000 at a sporting event, but if you have a funeral, you can't have over 500 people at a funeral, or you can't have 200 at a wedding, but 50,000. I went on a plane 2 weeks ago at the airport, got out the mask on, take it off to eat and drink, so everyone's got the mask off. And then we get in line to line up, and this woman's going along, keep your distance, the metre and a half. But then when you get on the plane, 3 seats here to aisle, 3 seats here, everyone's like this, squashed together. I'm like, where's social distancing now, huh? I was like, working, but lining up, don't get anyone of it. When we get on the plane, you're almost sitting on my lap. I'm like, How stupid is this shit?
I told a story similar to that. I was flying out of LA, out of California, and before you board the plane, they want you to be 6 feet apart. Yeah. And then when you get on the plane, they jam you.
It's like your arms rubbing on this guy. If he's sweaty, I'm thinking, oh. But then again, it's like I said, you go to the toilet on the plane, you're going to catch worse than COVID, I'm sure. It's like
it's crazy. You know what I find is like shocking is because I don't comment on this much because there's enough people, thank God, that are commenting on this mask. Like I'm not very against. I'm not like ultra against the mask or anything. I'm just like I don't trust the mask to protect me personally. So when I wear the mask, I wear it to be polite or whatever. But I don't really think it's doing that much, right? But what I find shocking is when you find people sitting next to each other and one guy has no mask and the other guy has two masks on. He has two like strapped onto each other, and neither of them are real. Like neither of them are the actual 3M whatever the hell thing. So like, what are you doing, dude? Do you think that it's just you think the air doesn't go through stuff? Where do you think you're getting your air from? It's coming through the side here. You can smell stuff. That's why you can smell it because it's coming through.
I gotta send you this funny video today. It was in I popped up on Facebook. There's a woman in Congress or somewhere, and she's arguing the mask debate. And while she's arguing, she's hyperventilating. She can barely breathe. I'm thinking, well, this isn't really good for your mask debate where you're trying to tell people to wear masks and you're about to pass out. She can barely talk. I got a guy making me a mask, but no, it's not Sean Race. So don't worry. Hold on. I'll get this mask. This is a better one.
Boston, do you wear a mask in Florida? Do you even have to go in a shop?
I don't wear that shit.
I went to Venice the other day. Nobody's wearing masks. People are going to shops wearing masks.
I might wear this one on the plane next time. Look at this. This is a good mask. And it's coming in time, too, for the movie. Ready?
That's what I need. I need something like that because... No, really, because you know what you need? You need something that connects to your shoulders so you can have a proper device.
Oh, yeah. It goes in here. Look, it goes in your shirt. So.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. That's legitimate.
I am Sub-Zero.
By the way, that's one of my favorite characters, actually. Yeah, me too.
Thank you very much. Photo combat.
But really,
you get such wonderful toys.
You need something that pulls in air and pushes it out. Otherwise, you're suffocating. Like I go into a shop. I don't know how there are these people in the gym that are doing cardio wearing a mask full time.
My dad's gym in California you can train inside with a 10% capacity, but you got to wear a mask.
Yeah, that's crazy.
What about the people that wear them too, but they got them down here?
Well, that's me. That's me. I'm walking around because in LA you got to wear it. So but I can't breathe. So I got to do that stuff sometimes.
Or you see the one person driving alone in their car with a mask on. I'm like,
horrible. When you see them in the car, it's like, dude, what did they do to you? You lost all your freedom and control. You're in your car masking yourself.
I had an argument with a friend of mine because he's all Lee, you need to wear a mask. You're the problem. He's got a mask on all the time, but yet he goes out, partying and drinking on the weekends. I said, let me get this straight. I said, you've got a mask on, but you're going out to these nightclubs and you take it off the drink and that. I said, I bet you if you met a hot girl while you're at this nightclub and she says, come home with me, and you're all hot under the collar, you go to have sex and she goes, do you have a condom? And you go, no. And she goes, it's okay. I bet you stick it in her and you're not worried about STDs and shit, are you? No, but you've got a mask on. It's okay. We're safe. We can have sex.
There's a lot of cognitive dissonance, that's for sure. Okay, let's take a last bodybuilding question. So King Booker asked, thoughts on Patrick Moore's physique and potential to win the Mr. O in the open class? I thought Lee and Boston, you'd both have interesting opinions.
He hasn't put on enough muscle. I don't think he's he needs an off season. He's too small.
He's got a great physique and symmetry, but did he say win the Olympia?
Yeah.
In the open.
No, I don't think he'd win the Olympia, no.
What if he was 23? What if he was 23 and not 35?
I don't even think
or 24.
He has a pleasing physique and great symmetry and shape and gets good condition, but I don't know. Then you have to say what year? Maybe back in the 80s he might have won and stuff like that. But now it's hard to say with the mass monster type people and stuff they're looking for. But then, okay, you had Sean Roden win, but I just don't think he has a pleasing. To me, he has like that pleasing for shape that Bob Paris had. Just like flows beautifully. He looks great when he poses. He has all the muscles in the right spot. But there's just I don't know. I think to be Mr. Olympia, somehow you got to have a wow factor.
He doesn't have the structure to carry that much muscle.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to
like I
ask
said,
Lee just now. So Lee, does that mean that you think that he can't, like, is he the type of guy that doesn't carry that much muscle naturally? Like he can't grow big enough to be a Mr. O? Probably.
I think he could probably get a little bit bigger, but no, I see him maybe on a good day. It depends who's in the show. He could probably crack top 10, maybe 6th or 7th, but I don't see him actually winning it. And that's not taking nothing away from him. It's just that I think the other guys who are in there are just that little bit better.
But Lee, have you ever seen someone at that level in the top leagues of the bodybuilding? For example, take 3 years off, just do a crazy off season and actually get much bigger? Or at that level, there's not going to be that much change. That's why you're saying that.
I haven't really seen that much change because even though you take that time off, I always found that if you kept competing each year, you always train that little bit harder. Because, like it's like me. It's like if you take a time off, you train, but the intensity is not the same. The mindset's not the same. If you're going up for a show every year, you're thinking about doing that. You're training hard. You're thinking about who your competition is. If you take 3 years off and you think, okay, I'll compete in 4 years' time, that 3 years, sometimes you might mess around a bit. I said the intensity level isn't the same as if you know you're going to compete the next year and the next year. And if you're chasing somebody, I think you just seem to relax a bit. And then when it's time to kick it into gear, sometimes it's hard to get back into that mind frame because I know when I came back after 7 years, in the beginning, I'm like, I don't think I can do this again. Just getting that mindset back, taking the bit of gear again, eating all the meals at this time, just that whole mental side. I always found the mental side worse than the physical side, getting ready for contests.
So basically you're saying there's no quicker way for him to do it, and he is doing it the quickest way, and that it's not going to happen that fast. Boston, you feel the same way, right?
I think he would be better off competing every year because most of these bodybuilders grow best in prep and they grow best on a post-show rebound when they stay lean, like meaning right after the show when they start adding food back. It seems like everyone's body responds best when they're depleted. So it seems like the bodybuilders that compete once a year at least are always the bodybuilders.
What is the optimal number of times to compete then a year to grow, just to grow? Is it 1 or 2 times?
I would say at least once.
But it could be 2 times, 2 like in the middle of the 2 different times in the year, or 2 in the
back when I competed, it was good because you do the Ironman, the Arnold, and the San Francisco, and then maybe that was 3 shows pretty much a week apart, or within a matter of a month you'd have 3 shows. Excuse me. Then in May you might do the Night of Champions, and you have the Olympia at the end of the year. But if not, you do those first 3 shows, qualify for the Olympia, and then just start dieting again around July. Whatever. So it was pretty good doing it that way. But I just found it better if I kept doing shows. As I said, it just gives you that drive and stuff. Because if I took time off, I'd be just like, get a bit easy. It's like.
Leo, I think it's proof in the pudding that the top 5 Olympians in the world, they only compete usually at the Olympia because they qualify. And the reason for that is because they need that time to improve. But I think it is crucial to compete at least once. But like you said, Lee said, if your shows are back to back, that's different. Like when they do the Olympia, then they have the Prague Pro after they do the little tour. That's fine, but it would be really hard to kind of do shows like 4 months. Plus you got to stay on the drugs. You got to stay on the drugs if you do that. That's too much.
Don't you think it's a bit of a shame that Patrick Moore has this I as a non-bodybuilder I feel so, because he has such an unusual like Frank Zane has a Mr. Olympia, but I feel like he has almost an equally beautiful physique as him, but he can never get a Mr. Olympia because the classic physique now is too light for him, and the Mr. Olympia he can't really compete in.
That's what I was going to say. If the classic was a bit heavier, Patrick would be perfect in
he's
classic.
He's a real classic physique. If you think about it, he's perfect classic physique, really. Yeah.
But he's like I said, he's not, bodybuilding, there used to be a lot of classic physiques, but then when the mass monsters come along with the big distended stomachs, it's like, we've got to make a classic class. Whereas if the judges didn't get to that stage, if they had I remember back when I was competing and we got this mandate saying if anyone's stomach sticks out, we're going to deduct points, blah, blah, blah. But a few people did get points deducted. Other people whose stomach stuck out and that didn't get points deducted. So it's like I was pick and choose. When Kathy, when I was married to her and she was competing, all the women got this big mandate thing sent out. You're coming in too big, you're looking too freaky and all this. We've got to tone it back. We need you girls to lose 20% of muscle. So a lot of the girls lost 20% of muscle. And what happens? The big girls like Iris, Kyle, and all them keep winning. It's like, well, you just told us to lose all this muscle. we did it, but you still award the big freaky girl first place. So what was the point of losing the muscle?
Did you feel pressured by that? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Boston.
No, I'm saying that Lee's right. The judging's all over the place. They've done that many times where they've said that we don't want big guts. We want the woman to be more feminine. And then all of a sudden you'll see a bunch of the chicks downsize and then they still reward fucking the freak. Like, what the fuck?
I could never understand too when you watch some of the big shows where, say you'd have someone like Dorian, big and freaky, thick midsection, and then let's just say, for instance, Dorian's first, and then you'd have someone like Dexter Jackson, beautiful shape, second. Sean Ray, and then third would be someone like Marcus Rule. How do you go from freaky, symmetrical back to freaky? It's like it should be freaky, 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 and then work your way down to symmetrical. How do you throw in? It's like just messing it up. It just didn't make sense.
That's so true. Okay, I think we'll leave it there, guys. It was such a pleasure to talk to you.
Before we leave, ask Lee Priest the same question you asked me last week about Nick Walker, 10 Olympias.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Also, maybe we should ask also when. But anyway, so what I wanted to ask you,
he's
Lee.
not going to win 10 Olympias. No,
no, not just 10 Olympias, but what is his potential in bodybuilding? Also,
it's hard to say because he looks good in that. Yes, he's done those shows, but until they get on stage with some of the Olympians, it's so hard to tell. Because I remember when there used to be like Akam Albrecht, and he was going to be the next Mr. Olympia. There used to be there was that other young kid. What was his name? He was the next up and coming. I've seen so many guys similar to Nick who are just big, freaky, and young, and they tout him as
Steve Kuklo.
Yeah, and who was the other one? There's someone not after Dennis Newman. It was Trey Brewer. Someone like Trey Brewer. He was on the cover. He was on the cover once. Next Mr. Olympia. I'm like, they put all this stuff on him. It's like, I think Nick's got a great physique and that, but yet. And I love that he's got this drive and passion and he's so confident, but yet to win 10 Olympias, it's like, I don't see that. It's like, someone you can look at, like if Phil Heath at his best, if Phil Heath said that, you could probably like, I believe that, or someone like that. But when you see Nick, I don't know. To me, like I said, I love Nick and I just hope that like I said, I like watching his training videos. I've seen some of them and I like his drive and his mindset, but I just hope that he doesn't do this so much and go overboard that, sadly we've seen some younger guys push that envelope too fast, too quick and get complications. I hope he is around for 10 Olympias. Even if he doesn't win them, I hope he's around long enough to at least compete in them and still be healthy doing it. So,
he sent me a message, Leo, after our podcast.
Did you really? What did he say?
I could send it to you. It wasn't bad.
But it's not bad. Yeah.
No, it wasn't bad. He was like, basically, he said, even though he says that he will win 10 Olympias, he says that's his goal. So he was like, he was upset that I said he's delusional for saying that he's going to win.
No,
and I said, listen,
you admire it.
It's not delusional that it's your goal. It's not delusional that it's your goal to win 10, but it is delusional when you go on podcasts and you say, I will win 10 Mr. Olympias. And he understood.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'd love to see him win one because I said he's still young, he's got the time. But I just hope, like I said, that he loves competing and does it smart. Whoever's helping him, that helps him the right way. And like I said, even if he doesn't win them, I'm hoping he's around long enough to compete in 10 of them and do well in 10 of them. He might not win them, but we've seen that sometimes the guys that don't win them aren't always the crowd favorite. So, as long as he becomes popular in the sport and he can make money elsewhere and that sort of thing. But just, as long as they keep helping, that goes for everyone.
But when you compete, when you set your expectations crazy high like that,
that's the thing that Boston said.
Lee, like Trey Brewer did that. Like when he won the Excalibur in California, he was 21 years old and he was a freak, right? Everyone was like, this guy's Then he kept failing at nationals. He kept failing. And then he disappeared. He became a firefighter. And now he's a personal trainer at a gym. I actually know the gym that he's a personal trainer at. And I think when you set your expectations so high like that and it doesn't work out in your favor, it's very discouraging sometimes. So I hope he doesn't end up like the next Trey Brewer.
People used to get mad at me, like in my training videos leading up to the Olympia. I think there's one now I'm talking to Robbie Robinson. And I'm like, Robbie, don't talk to me right now. I'm training for 8th place at the Mr. Olympia. And people are like, Lee, how do you say that? I said, look, I'm a realist. I knew I was never going to win the Olympia. But I'd always set my mind on 10th because back then, if you got top 10, that qualified you for next year. So if people go, Lee, how do you hope you're going to do? I said, look, I hope to get 10th. And they're like, 10th, don't you hope to get high? I said, look, if I set my mind on 10th, and then that 1 year I got 5th and then moved to 6th, and then 2 more times I got 6th. Look, anything over 10th then to me is a bonus. So if they call that 10th place and it's not me, and I think, shit, I got 9th, well, that's better than I thought I was going to get. So I always put my mind at 10th place, because that would qualify me again. So anything above 10th, 7th, 8th, 6th, whatever, that was a bonus to me. So
if you were telling everyone you're going to win and you end up fucking 6th, it doesn't look as good.
Mm-hmm. No, it's like those fighters that go, I'm going to knock you out, I'm going to beat your ass, and they go in the ring and whack, they go down. It's like, maybe you should have just been humble and just.
That was my only advice to Nick, really, and he understood.
But Lee, I wanted to ask you something. You're almost, I don't know how tall Nick is, but you're similar, like sort of in height, and he's also sort of young, and he has a lot of.
He's 5'7". He's 5'7".
Yeah,
5'7".
He says he's 5'7". He's 5'6" on a good day.
Yeah. Oh, so it's similar. So what I was going to ask is this. You also have a long torso like him. He also has a long torso, which is interesting because he has a wide waist is main issue. So what would you do in his position? And how do you think he has a wide waist with such a long torso in the first place? It's such an unusual thing.
I think it's just genetics. You know, I've always been lucky because even when I bulked up, because my waist at its biggest when I was at my heaviest was about 43 inches. And then when I dieted down, it was 29, 30 inches.
That's crazy.
And I never got loose skin or anything. So I was lucky. Because people say, how do you not get loose skin? I'm like, I don't know. It must just be genetics. So I think, too, I don't know the short he does training-wise, but I used to always remember Mike Christian. I used to do 10, 15 minutes a day, just the broomstick on the back. I never used weights. I never did side bends or work my obliques because, you know, the obliques are muscle. So I never wanted to build it up by doing any direct exercises. But my main ab exercises for my stomach were just leg crunches off the end of a bench where you sit on the end of the bench and lift your legs up for the lower abs, and then just 15 minutes of these trunk twists every day and that. But yeah, I think it's genetic on when it comes down to waist. And then it's just, if you do have a bit thicker one, then it's just a matter of height. And if that's a weak point, if your waist is a little thick, then it's just finding the best poses, the best angles that suit you to hit poses where I've seen his front double bicep, and I think his waist in that looks pretty good. It tapers right down because of his legs and his shoulders and his arms. It sort of tapers in nice, those things, but could be on other poses where you got to watch out and just be mindful of it too. That, you know, because a lot of guys, they think someone's not looking, but they turn side on at a certain angle and they relax, and you can guarantee as soon as your stomach goes out, someone goes click.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's the only picture you'll see online. Yeah, look at his stomach here.
Yeah, if you search Ronnie Coleman, I bet you on Google, many of the things are just
it's bad.
It's so sad. That's undeserving.
Or it's like too when guys would do an ab shot sometimes, and Boston's probably heard it too. But like, look at here, your legs are so smooth, but yet the guy beside you's probably going whack straight into the ab shot, hit his quad. You've just hit your abs. You haven't hit your quad yet, and that's when they take your picture. Yeah, but your legs are way smooth. It's like, I'm not fucking flexing them yet.
They do that, Lee. They do that in the NPC. They want you to buy your photos. So if you don't buy your photos, they post all the photos of you not flexed. Like mid-pose. They give you the most terrible photos online. Where you're
I think that's Manda's taking the photos, by the way.
I'm talking about NPC News Online, but then if you pay for the photos, you get your professional shots where you're actually getting poses. I think they do that on purpose because they want you to buy the good photos.
Oh yeah, and like I said, sadly with the internet today, a lot of people sometimes don't go to the shows, and that's where they judge the show. Well, look at him in this photo, and then you could see, like Boston would even know. You could be better than someone, but if that guy just steps 1 foot closer to the camera on stage and they take a photo, they're like, yeah, but look at him. He's overpowering him by a mile. It's like just the angles or the lighting. Yeah. It's all an illusion. It's just so.
Is that what happened with Cornelius?
No, he didn't.
I'm joking. He didn't. I'm joking.
That's what I said.
I watched those videos of my dad yesterday or the other day, and he was like, "What the fuck?"
Hey, we should have Cornelius on sometime. It would be very funny. All right. Anyway, Lee, thank you so much for joining us. We should
you're welcome.
Leo show sometime soon, so we can check.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Lee, let me know if you end up going to Wheatley's because hopefully
I will definitely.
Hopefully this mask mandate ends because I usually go out there because my mom used to judge those shows before she moved. She used to be one of the judges, and I love those shows, man.
Yeah, great. Yeah, if I come over, I'm going to come over for at least 2 weeks and stay for 2 weeks when I'm there. So,
perfect.
I'll be staying in Venice area. But I want you to know, Leo, because I travel, I'm meant to be going to Spain in March, end of May. And to get out of quarantine and stuff, my doctor friends booked me in for next month to get the vaccine. So if I suddenly start fucking twitching.
Excellent. Okay. But
well, next time I'm getting, I'm not sure which one I'm getting, but if next time I come on, I start going,
you're gonna get us banned now. The trolls are gonna record this. We're done. We're done. Anyway, he was not imitating any ethnicity, by the way. That was not what was
that's
happening.
the China flu. The China
No, it
virus,
was not. No, that's their imagination.
Trump said it was. All right, I come from China.
I still call it the China virus in private, but anyway, I'll let you guys go.
Oh, you just got us banned. Thanks.
It is banned already. It's done. All right, bosses. See you guys later.